Beginning in just a moment and let you know that yes, this is being recorded. We welcome everyone that is attending today. We appreciate your attendance. I'll give a few more minutes so that the others come in from the waiting room. But we are so happy to have you here today. Thank you. I'm loving this weather. I like it with sunny out, even though it's, a little cool, but at least there's some sun there too. Good morning and welcome. I see we still have people in the waiting room, so we'll give them an opportunity to get in and get settled and get ready to begin our funding. I'll give it a few more minutes, a couple of more minutes, so that everyone in the waiting room come in and get settled. Good morning, everyone, and welcome. I know I keep saying that, but we keep letting more and more people in, so I want to make sure that I speak with them also. Okay, well, I'll start right now. Again, good morning and welcome everyone to the California Financing Coordinating Committee's Fall Funding Fair. My name is Sarissa Hartwell, and I am the marketing coordinator at the State Water Board for the Division of Financial Assistance. And on behalf of all of us at CFCC, we welcome you today to our funding fair. To give you an overview of the day, we're going to start with welcomes, and then we're going to have an introduction, and then we're going to have some presentations, and then we'll have the virtual booth. The virtual booths will be open after the last presentation, and you'll see these little 4 boxes at the bottom of your screen. You could go ahead and join any of them. There's each agency will have their own breakout room, and we also have what we call 4 additional one-on-one rooms, because sometimes those breakout rooms could get kind of busy and people need to talk. So we have additional rooms. You can go and ask one of the representatives to join a different room. This is the opportunity for you to speak with program staff directly about any projects you might have coming up or any questions you have regarding the presentations, because we're not going to have any questions after each presentation on the interest of time. So if you want to ask any additional questions, please wait for the virtual booths. These are some of the agencies that will be presenting today. We have federal, state, and local agencies. And they're talking about all their different funding programs and financial assistance. Before we begin, we have a few questions we want to ask you. So there are a few poll questions. So right now I'll have the poll questions launched. If you take a moment and answer the questions, we'll really appreciate it. I am always so happy to see when how many people, this is their first time attending a funding fair. And for question 4, for other, if you can let us know what that other is in the chat, we'd appreciate that so we can find out what other methods we could use to get the word out about the opportunities for financial assistance. That's on question 4, and also on question 5, if you can put down what your other entity is. I want to welcome our tribal. We have someone here from the tribal representing. We appreciate you coming. And we have a few people here who are representative of undeserved communities. So during our presentations, we'll make sure that we highlight those 2 opportunities for those. Wow. We have people all from northern, southern, central, and the coastal. I love it. I like seeing that. Also, I will in the chat, we have the website. Let me share that. At the CFC website, this is where you'll find the handout for today. This is, if you go to www.cfcc.ca.gov, you come to the website, and under quick links, you will find the funding fair handbook. This is all the information from the presenters today. They're the state agencies and the federal agencies and all those, their information and funding program is located in the handbook. So this is where you can go if you want to get the handbook. Also, the slide presentations today are also here. If you come down here to presentations, you'll see each one of the presenters' presentations in here. We have it at our website. And also, if you can't stay for the whole funding fair, their contact information is also down here under contact information. At the top up here, also under quick link, there's a funding inquiry form. It's in a Word form or a PDF form. This PDF is where you can have is what we call our common funding inquiry form. If you fill this out with basic information and then email it to iBank, they will distribute it to all of these CFCC members to see if any of our agencies can help you with your project. Also, we will, as we said, we are recording the funding fair. This was October 19th funding fair. After today, we'll be posting today's funding fair also. Over here under November 3rd is where you can find today's agenda. There might be a little change. All the presenters are here today, but there might be a change in how they're going to present. Also, if you have an opportunity, you can come under infrastructure funding programs, and these are all the agencies that have infrastructure money. So if you have any need for infrastructure, that's another place. Also under additional funding programs. Right here is the California Grants Program. Today we have a speaker from the California State Library who's going to be demonstrating how to navigate using this portal. This is where a lot of state agencies put their funding opportunities. We also have a federal grant program. We also have a portal, and we have someone who's going to be showing you how to navigate that also. So at any time, 24/7, you can visit the CFCC website and you can find all type of information about fundings and other things that are available to you. On the screen here is the funding fair agenda. As you see, we had our welcomes and our overview of the day. Our first presenters will be state agencies. They will be presenting, and then we'll have a small 15-minute break. Then after the break, we'll have the federal agencies present. we'll go directly into the local agency's presentation. And before I open up the virtual booths, we have a evaluation form we will look for you to fill out. And then after that, we will open up the virtual booth. So let's begin with our very first speaker, which will be Shivani from the State Library. I'll stop sharing my screen and Shivani.
Thank you, Sarisa. Let me share my screen and we'll get started for today's funding fair. Good morning, everyone. My name is Shivani Bosrella. I'm the project manager over California Grants Portal from the California State Library. This project is out of a legislation. It requires state agencies to put all of the competitive first come award process, including federal assistance funds and loans on this website altogether. The idea behind the legislation was to provide a central place for grant seekers to come and find funding in the state that they might be going to different departments and not finding all eligible funding that might be useful for their communities and organizations. So today I'm going to just give you guys an overview of how this tool works. If you have any further questions or want to learn a little bit more about it, I will be putting our email address in the chat at the end, as well as the link to this portal as well. So bear with me, I'm going to walk you through it, and hopefully this is useful and helpful for your communities and organizations as you start to utilize this resource. So it's grants.ca.gov. Again, it's very similar to grants.gov. So it just has a CA in the middle. So just remember that. So it's grants.ca.gov. So it takes you to this homepage. It looks like, on top, it has a sentence that you can complete to find opportunities, and it filters based on what you select. And then obviously there's different ways to get into the same information by selecting whether categories or applicant types, or you can also look at our recently posted grant opportunities. On the bottom of it, it gives you a statistic run of every 24 hours. It updates based on the information that is being added to the portal. So right now we have 159 current grant opportunities that are active or forecasted, totals of $16.9 billion that are active on this portal. So to understand how the filters work up here, I'm going to start with this sentence because this is the most filtered on the homepage, and I'll show you there's advanced filter in Find Grants page. So before we get to that, the total, so you'll select an applicant type. So in this case, you can select nonprofit, tribal government, public agency, and any of them that you represent, you can select. You can have multiple selections here. You can select a category. These categories are set high level to ensure your user experience on this portal. Therefore, if you're looking for anything that is related to water, infrastructure, you will want to probably come to environment and water as a category. If you are representing an underserved communities, the state agencies are tagging their grant opportunities with disadvantaged communities tag or category in this case. So you want to select that, and you want to select environment and water. So that will give you a better sense of grant opportunities that are available with those tags. Okay. So once you've selected your multiple selections, you just basically say, show me the opportunities, and it'll filter your opportunities to provide grants for individuals. In this case, I selected individual, and then disadvantaged communities and environment and water. If your organization is, want to make sure that they can apply for this grant, they can select a time frame. So these are driven based on the deadlines on the portal. So you can select it's closing in 1 month, closing in 3 months, 6 months, 1 year. Okay. So this helps kind of the organizations that might be, have less resources to now be able to apply for something that's like around the corner. If you want to see everything, the 159 grant opportunities on this portal, you will say, show me everything. I'm actually going to select that so I can show you how that looks like. Takes you to the Find Grants page, which is also, you can get to from the top. This page has advanced filters. The advanced filters allow you to be able to put keyword search. I'll note that there's a tooltip right here that tells you type of text that will bring up the right type of results for this filter. The keywords are looking at text that is in the grant opportunities entered by state agencies. So in other words, so if you're looking for COVID-19 related grants, you would put just COVID-19. If you're looking for drought, you select drought and hit enter, apply filter. It'll give you every grant that has drought in it, whether it's in the title, like this one, for example, or it might be in the purpose or in the description or any kind of text. Okay, so this is to allow you to find all grants that might be related to that, and you may not know that they existed in the past, right? Because you were going from one department to another. So it does like a wide search in that context. Right now, it's forecasted and active. There are only 2 defaults that are selected here. That's to give you the currently available grant funding. Forecasted are those that are not open for application, but they are only put by the state agencies to give you a heads up that this might be coming. Again, these forecasted can also have workshop information, technical assistant information for those specific grant opportunities by the state agencies. So it's important to, look at those forecasted grant opportunities if you're interested in them. You can also select closed. When you can't find something on the portal, you always want to check closed, because there might have been grant opportunities in the past that are related to your interest. And it gives you a better sense of maybe they will be coming back next year, right? If the funding is available. You can also select by agency. In this case, you can do water resources or state water control board, and then just pull up only grants related to their department. Categories, again, is the same as the homepage. Eligible applicants is the same. Disbursement method, if you're interested in reimbursement, advance and reimbursement, you can select any of those to give you a better filter. If you do not want to see loan opportunities, you want to select this so that you don't see the loan opportunities on the portal. Or if you don't want to see anything that requires matching fund, so you can do those do not show kind of hidden from the search. One of the main things to remember, you can save your filters on this and it will drop a cookie on your browser. So for example, if I were to say, I'm going to select nonprofit, I'm going to do disadvantaged communities, and then I'm going to do reimbursements only. And I'm going to hit apply self-filter. And if you come here on save current refinements hyperlink, what it does is it saves that search for me. Next time I come to the grants.ca.gov, it's going to pull up my search already that are already selected. So you can say, yes, save my search. There is a limit. You can't go more than 6 total filters, right? So there's a specific limit to that. So just make sure you select less than 6 and you'll be able to save your refinement. So you can select multiple categories, multiple eligible, applicant types and such. If you're looking at the grant and you want to just understand what's about this grant, you can look at the purpose. You can click on more details and you can look at purpose, eligible applicants, geographic limitation or requirements here. If you're interested in looking at this grant further, you click on view grant detail, or you just click on the hyperlink of the title. It'll take you to the detail page. This is the detail page where it gives you important dates, gives you funding details, amounts, any notes and exceptions or requirements that state agencies have listed. This gives you a better understanding if you're eligible for this grant, and then if you are and you're ready to apply, you go to grant guidelines. You're always required to review the grant guidelines prior to applying through the department's website. So our site does not host applications. The other most important piece to remember, resources. So if you have any questions about these grants, per the legislation, the state agencies are required to give us contact information for each of the grant opportunities here. So you have a phone number and an email address to be able to contact regarding this grant opportunity. I'll show you real quick on how to get notifications from us. So if you go to subscribe on the right-hand corner, you can get notifications from the grants portal, so you don't have to come to the portal every time and look for new grant opportunities that might be added by state agencies, which is daily, right? So you can select daily or weekly notifications. It's like a digest to your email. I will note, you want to select either newest grants, which is going to be all new grants, or the category. If you select newest grants and a category, you will get a duplicate email notification, because what it's looking for is any new grants in that category that is tagged, and it's a new grant. So it will send you 2 duplicate emails. So it's one or the other. So either newest grant or one of the categories, or multiple categories you can select. Okay. If you're interested in providing feedback to us in the future, we host feedback sessions quarterly or periodically. So if you're interested, you can select yes and let us know, and we will contact you when the next feedback session is happening. Usually feedback sessions also kind of like a training session 101. So with that, I will, there's all sorts of resources, there's glossaries, there's frequently asked questions. You can also translate this into different languages. This site, it only ends at the site, doesn't go to the state agency's site. And this is powered by Google Translate. With those questions, anything else I didn't mention? If you have any questions, you can contact me later on. You can always contact us by filling out the survey on here, or contact us by the email address listed here with any questions. I will hand it back to Sarisa and have you continue getting more resources and information on today's fair.
Thank you so much, Shivani, for that. I always appreciate hearing about the portal because there's always something new added to it. So and says help everyone goes to the portal and visit it, because it's a very good, great resource. Our next person that's going to be coming up is Greg Schaefer from the California Department of Toxic Substance Control. Unfortunately, the Talk Recycle may or may not be presenting today, but we'll let you know. So Greg, I'll stop sharing my screen and let you start sharing yours.
Okay, sounds good. All right, good morning, everyone. My name is Greg Schaefer. I'm a statewide brownfield coordinator here at the Department of Toxic Substances Control, or DTSC. And I'm going to be talking to you about our Equitable Community Revitalization Grant, also called ECRG. These are some of the topics we're going to cover pretty quickly today. But what is ECRG? Who are the grantees or eligible applicants? What's the schedule for round 2 that's coming up? How you can best prepare for your application, and where to find information and assistance for both applicants and grantees if you're awarded. This slide is just a little bit of history, a little bit of background on where our funding came from. It was part of a Cleanup in Vulnerable Communities initiative, which was a $500 million package that the legislature provided to DTSC. It provided opportunities under a variety of different programs, but 270 million of that 500 million was dedicated to brownfield grants, which is where we got ECRG. The next slide is some really high-level information on each of the initiatives that's part of CVCI. So we have ECRG, which is the grant portion, discovery and enforcement, which is an enforcement of contaminated sites in vulnerable communities, additional funding for orphan sites, which are sites that no longer have responsible parties that are viable to clean them up, a workforce development program, technical assistance grants, and community benefit agreements. So this is really just for your information. If any of those kind of ring a bell or pique your interest, you can look here for some brief information on that specific program, and then you can have a contact here at DTSC to reach out to as well. But back to ECRG, again, the Equitable Community Revitalization Grant. It is a brownfield grant with $270 million spread out over 3 years. So we are currently in the second round, and there is $100 million available this year that needs to be encumbered by June 30th of 2023. It is primarily to incentivize cleanup and investment in disadvantaged areas, which we'll get into what a disadvantaged area has been defined as in this grant. And it is open to public entities, so public agencies, nonprofits, and tribes to conduct community-wide assessments, which are really early stage environmental assessments at a collection of properties, an environmental investigation, which is a sampling and evaluation of a single property, and environmental cleanups, which is, you already know that cleanup is necessary based on the previous investigations, and you're going to do a cleanup on a single property. Last, this application is online, and it is a competitive application. So how do we define disadvantaged areas? We are using the Office of Environmental Health Hazard Assessment, or OEHA's Cal EnviroScreen 4.0, and dedicating our focus on scores that are 75% and higher. So when you go to Cal EnviroScreen, which there is a link in this presentation, you can click, and it's based on census tract. And Cal EnviroScreen combines demographic data with pollution data to determine how much a specific census tract, how much of a pollution burden a specific census tract has. So again, applications in areas where the Cal EnviroScreen score is above 75% are prioritized, but you are eligible if you are below 75%, but the reuse component of your property needs to be benefiting a disadvantaged community. And then last but not least, if there is a CES score of 50% or below, your application will get ranked lower. So again, this is a little bit of a repeat, but community-wide assessment grants, again, early stage assessments are a flat rate of $350,000 to do things like phase 1 environmental site assessments, if you're familiar with those, which is environmental due diligence when acquiring properties. And it can also do some really early stage sampling if your phase 1 indicates that there may be some sort of environmental conditions at the site. Site-specific investigations are, I think we're going to be changing this. It might be $150,000 at the lower end, up to $3 million. And then the site-specific cleanup, similarly, I believe we're going to be changing this to $150,000 at the low end and up to $7 million. You must have a reason to believe that the site is or may be contaminated. That comes from the definition of a brownfield, which is a property whose use or reuse is inhibited by the presence or potential presence of contamination. So you must have some sort of reason to know that your property may be contaminated. It could have previously had, a dry cleaner in a retail strip mall. It could have been a gas station or some sort of larger manufacturing plant. The site must be planned for reuse as well. So if you're above 75% on Cal EnviroScreen, then any reuse is going to be an eligible project for this grant. But again, if you're below 75%, the reuse must be directly tied to benefiting or supporting a disadvantaged or vulnerable community. And some of the things we saw in round 1 were things like affordable housing, of course, parks in areas that desperately need green space. We also had a grocery store that was very much needed in a USDA designated food desert. And we also had things like nonprofit health clinics. So anything like that, again, we left it relatively open-ended for you to kind of make your case in your application, but those are the types of projects that we're generally targeting. The funding term is relatively short. It is a 24-month period, 2-year period after the grant award is executed, and it is a reimbursement-based grant. So grantees are required to submit invoices to DTSC. We evaluate them to ensure that they are eligible expenses, and then we process the reimbursement through the state controller's office. Regulatory oversight is required for the site-specific investigations and site-specific cleanup grants. This is to ensure, a high level of confidence that the investigations and cleanups are done properly and in accordance with state and federal laws. And it gives us, a higher level of comfort especially when doing some sort of potentially sensitive reuse like residential or a health clinic. And last but not least, you must have a circle of liability defense, which is the circle is a federal law that really determines an entity's environmental liability. That's a pretty technical thing that we're not going to get into in this presentation, but we do have some tools and checklists to help you walk through that kind of complicated process. This is some of the data that was from round one. So we had 53 awardees for a total of 84 sites. Again, the community-wide assessments require more than one site, which is why we have more sites than awards. We were able to award $75.4 million. And 69% of the grants awarded were in that Cal EnviroScreen score of 75% or higher. You can see that a lot of the awards are clustered in the metropolitan areas of California. So we had a lot of awards in the East Bay and in Los Angeles. We are looking for greater geographic representation in our next rounds. So we are targeting areas like the Central Valley, the far northern parts of California, as well as the Imperial Valley, where we know that we have a lot of higher Cal EnviroScreen scores, but didn't get a lot of representation. So if you are in one of those areas, we would love to speak to you and see if you have any sites that would be eligible for this award. This is just a collection of the logos and city seals of some of the awardees that we had. So we have a large collection of nonprofits and cities represented. We only had, I think, one tribe that was awarded in round one. And so we are looking to engage more tribes and award and give ECRG awards to tribes as well. Again, I touched on a couple of these. So we are still looking for preference in high Cal EnviroScreen score areas, high impact projects that provide community benefits. Again, some of those really hard hitting projects that are going to revitalize the community and go back to the core mission of our grant, which is to take contaminated properties that may be weighing a community down and transforming them and providing opportunities in that same location at a site that was previously bringing down a community to actually change it and uplift that area. Projects where ECRG funds are critical to move forward. So sites that, maybe are projects that may be underfunded that really need help on the environmental front. If you've ever worked on a brownfield site before, you know that they can be relatively expensive. So that's why our investigations are up to $3 million and our cleanup grants are up to $7 million. Equitable development commitments and metrics. So this is a component that was part of round one that will continue in round two. So it's some of the actual measurable benefits that you can provide to DTSC as part of your application to say, these are some measurable, trackable benefits that we can provide as part of this project. So that can be things like increasing the amount of the walkability or the transit areas of a site, the number of acres of green space that the project is going to provide, even number of jobs in an area that desperately needs jobs. Things like that are all part of equitable development commitments. We are looking to engage more tribes, like I had mentioned before, and again, better geographic representation in areas like the Central Valley, Inland Empire, Coachella Valley, and Southeastern California, and the far northern parts of the state. This is just, again, another map of where our grantees are and some of the target areas that we're looking at for round two. This is a rough overview of the ECRG schedule. We're actually at the tail end, so you can see in the ECR Genius webinars, that's what we call our targeted topic-specific webinars for ECRG topics and eligibility criteria. We just wrapped those up last week. So all of our recordings are actually available on our website, which I can share after this presentation. But we also released, I think, the most helpful tool so far, which is the ECRG eligibility self-check tool. It is a checklist that goes through the eligibility criteria we are expecting to maintain in round two. And it gives you a checklist. Basically, if you're able to say yes to all the questions in the checklist, you're likely going to be eligible when round two opens up in January. It also gives you an idea of some of the documentation you may need to gather that will be required as part of the application package as well. We are looking to release, so that eligibility self-check tool is available right now on our website, but we are aiming to release our formal guidelines in December, with the application actually opening up in January 2023, and then the application deadline will be in March 2023. The decisions and awards will be released in June, and then the grant agreements are expected to be executed between June and July of 2023. And it is important to note that with this being a reimbursement-based grant, none of the expenses that an entity incurs before the grant award are going to be eligible. Expenses start becoming eligible for reimbursement the date of the grant award itself. Again, this is just a tentative schedule that we have available on our website. We have a flyer on the left-hand side, which is it's just an ECRG one-pager that kind of summarizes a lot of the information we talked about today. But that is a helpful tool on our, if you want to share ECRG with maybe one of your colleagues or an entity that you work with before that you think would be a good candidate for this grant. How can you best prepare for your ECRG application? Again, we've talked about a lot of the resources that are available on DTSC's ECRG website, including the eligibility self-check tool, the ECR Genius webinars that are left on recorded on our website as well. But last but not least, we have a brownfield technical assistance provider, which is a contractor with DTSC, which is the Center for Creative Land Recycling. They are a nonprofit that is focused on brownfield reuse and have a really strong connection with the brownfield reuse community throughout the state of California and actually throughout several states. They also provide brownfield technical assistance for US EPA, and they have been a wonderful partner kind of getting this grant up and running. They offer free technical assistance that you can sign up for through this link on here. And we've been really doing this plug, but 95% of the applicants who worked with SWRCB during round one received funding. So we highly encourage you to set up a free appointment with them for application assistance. They can walk through your project with you and kind of give you tips on how best to be successful during your actual application in January. This is just a slide of what the application assistance calendar appointment will look like when you set that up. It's pretty easy. And here are just some contacts to reach out to if you have questions. So our general mailbox is ecrginfo@dtsc.ca.gov. If you have specific questions on your project, we want you to reach out to SWRCB directly at EC, and their email address is ecrg@swrcb.org. Again, DTSC's webpage. SWRCB also has a dedicated webpage, and the DTSC has a general loans and grants webpage for additional loan opportunities. I believe that's the end of my presentation, so I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen. If you have any questions, I know we covered a lot of things. Please join me in the breakout room later this afternoon, and I'll be happy to walk you through any kind of specific questions you might have on our eligibility. Sarisa, thank you.
Thank you, Greg. We appreciate your presentation. It's always so nice to hear about the various funding programs that's available to everyone. I really like that. Okay, I will start sharing my screen. This is the agenda again. Our next presenter is going to be John from the Department of Water Resources. He's going to give us some great information on funding opportunities that the water resources have. I'll stop sharing my screen, John, and let you start sharing yours.
Hey, thanks, Teresa. Good morning, everyone. Give me a second here so I can share my screen. All right, so hopefully everyone can see my screen on now. Good morning. My name is John Nguyen, and I am the acting CFCC's program specialist for the California Department of Water Resources. It's great to be here today to share with you information on DWR current and future funding opportunities. So let's get started. Here's a list of grant funding sources that allocated to us for the current and upcoming grant funding. Proposition 1, 13, 68, 84, and general funds. A list of eligibility groups or agency that we normally work with are local and public agency, which includes state, cities, county, special district, joint power authorities, political subdivision of the state, public utilities, mutual water companies. We also work with tribal governments, nonprofit organization, and some program under the groundwater sustainability agencies, universities, and levee maintenance agencies. So how to apply or get more information? In addition to CA Grant Portal, visit our DWR Grant and Loan, where you can find active grants opportunities, public comment opportunities, shortcut to CA Grant Portal, and link to DWR Grant programs. On their page, you'll be able to contact the program representative directly to learn more about how to apply. Okay, so thanks to Savani with a great demo of CA Grant Portal earlier today. Today, I'm gonna dive directly into, let me stop, new share. Okay, so are you able to see CA Grant Portal at the moment? All right. All right, so today I'll dive directly into how to find DWR grants on CA Grant Portal. So first, select Find Grants, and under the agency filters, you can type in just water. Put a check box on Department of Water Resources and apply filter. So on this list here, you'll be able to see all of DWR active and forecasted grants. And I'm going to go through each one of them to present each one of the information that we have for all the current ones. The first one we have on the list is the Sustainable Groundwater Management Implementation Round 2. So this grant program is currently active and accepting applications. The total funding availability is 200 million. Eligible projects are groundwater recharge projects, contaminated groundwater prevention or cleanup, water supply reliability and conservation, recharge potential, flood management with recharge, revision to the groundwater sustainability plans or alternative to a groundwater sustainability plans. On the bottom of the page, bottom right corner, you can find how to apply it with resources and contact information where you can contact the groundwater team directly. Next we have on the list is the 2022 Urban Community Drought. So this grant program is currently active and accepting application with a total funding of 285 million. Eligible projects are projects that support immediate drought response, drought resilient planning, water conservation activities, turf replacement, hot water, installation of temporary or permanent community water tanks, bottled water, water vending machine, emergency water entity, new well or rehabilitation of existing well, construction or installation of permanent connection to adjacent water system, or recycle water projects that provide immediate relief to potable water supplies, fish and wildlife rescue, protection and relocation. And if you move down to the bottom of the page, you will find how to apply and resources and how to contact the urban drought team. Our third one on the list is the Prop 1 Round 2 Integrated Water Management Implementation Grant. So this one is also active and currently accepting application with a total funding of 193 million. Eligible projects are water reuse and recycling, water reuse efficiency and water conservation, surface and underground water storage, water conveying facilities, watershed protection, restoration, and management, stormwater management, water desalination, decision support tool, for example, computer models, improvements of water quality, regional projects or program defined by the IRWM Planning Act. And also on the bottom of the page where you can find how to apply with resources and contact information for the IRWM team. Our fourth one on the list is the Small Community Drought Relief Grant Program. This grant is also active and currently accepting application with a total funding of $305 million. Eligible projects are hot water, temporary household water tanks, bottled water, water vending machine, emergency entity between two water systems, new well or rehabilitation of existing well, construction or installation of permanent infrastructure, and also how to apply and resource with contact information for the small community drought are listed on the bottom right of the page. Okay, our next one is the Riverine Stewardship Grant Program. This grant program is active and currently accepting the application with the total funding of $13 million. Eligible projects are habitat improvements, efforts such as gravel injections, innovative fish passage solutions that remove barriers, innovative solution that improve water conveying within the riverine habitats. And also on the bottom right, you will find how to apply with resource and contact information for the Riverine Stewardship Program. Next we have on the list here is the Delta Levee Special Flood Control Project Program. This is a forecasted grant and is anticipated open date is spring 2023. Please keep in mind that this grant is only for projects in the California Delta and part of the Sisu Mars. The total funding for this grant program is $37 million. And eligible projects are construction, design, engineering work, habitat enhancement, multi-benefit projects, and levee improvement. Bottom right page, you will also find how to apply with resources and contact information for the Delta Levee program. We have the next one is the urban stream restoration. And urban stream is also active and accepting application. The total funding for this program is $12.4 million. And eligible projects are daylighting of streams, bank stabilization and native revegetation, recontouring of channel to improve floodplain function to localize flood protections, how to apply with resources and contact information will be listed at the bottom right of the page. The last one we have on the list here is a forecasted grant, the San Joaquin Fish Population Enhancement Program. I am not going to go over this program today because the program don't have the funding available yet. And because grant opportunities information is subject to change, so please check with CA Grant Portal and our DWR Grant and Loan page regularly for updated information. Let's see, so I'll go back to my presentation. And then there also will be breakout room for DWR later on this afternoon. We have all program staff from all of our active grants. They will be on board to help you with any question that you may have. So join us later, save your question for later. So DWR grant opportunities also listed on the CFCC handbook. So make sure you visit the CFCC website with today's presentation and also the handbook that will listed all of our current and future grants opportunities. And many of our grants program have our listserv page. So if you can go into the water.ca.gov, the subscription page, you will be able to subscribe to any of the grant program. Or you can also visit our program page and there will be also link to how to subscribe for the listserv. We are also on social media. So visit us on CA-DWR on Facebook, CA_DWR on Twitter. We have a YouTube channel that called Cal Water, and also Instagram as CA Department of Water Resources. So make sure you follow us for all updated information from our department. So if you have any question, feel free to email me. I have my phone number and email address listed on this page. Also, my supervisor was Leslie Pierce. Her contact information also on this page. Feel free to email me or call me if you have any additional question. If not, then I'll talk to you more during our break room later today. And that is the end of my presentation. Thank you very much. Back to you, Sarisa.
Thank you, John. That was great information. Another opportunity to see how the grants portal works. We really appreciate that. I'll start sharing my screen. I will share my screen and let you know our next speaker is Stephen Wright and Lydia from iBank. They're from the Infrastructure and Economic Development Bank. So I'll stop sharing my screen and then you guys can start sharing yours. Thank you.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Give me a few seconds to get this pulled up. All right, I hope everyone can see that. Good morning, and thank you for joining us to learn a little bit more about the California Infrastructure and Economic Development Bank, iBank for short. My name is Stephen Wright, and I am a loan officer specialist in the loan origination unit. And I'm joined today by my co-host, Lydia Workman, who is our program analyst. This slide deck will be on the CFCC website, so you don't have to worry about taking very many notes. And let's get started. So iBank was created in 1994 to simply solve a problem. There was not enough funding going around for infrastructure project, and so that's how iBank got its creation. We finance public infrastructure and private development that helps promote jobs and create a better quality of life for people here in California. We are housed in the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development, also known as GoBiz. Here are our core programs. Today, we're going to be focusing on the purple icon, the State Revolving Fund program. We will briefly touch on other programs throughout this slide presentation later on. Here are some of our current focus areas. Not only do we want to create jobs, but we also work on maintaining jobs throughout the state of California. We want to keep as many of our people working for as long as possible in the state of California. Expanding access to our programs. We want to be able to include all people and all communities. We don't want to leave anybody left out because that's what we're here for. We're here to make California the best state that it possibly can be. Also, we're now getting into addressing climate change. iBank has been expanding its role for climate financing. We are investing in and enabling projects that address the climate crisis in a meaningful way. And now I'm going to turn it over to Lydia, who will be covering the next few slides. Lydia?
Thanks, Stephen. So you might be thinking about why you would want to choose iBank for your infrastructure loans. There's a few benefits that we want to go ahead and highlight. With iBank, you save time. We do conduct a preliminary review and provide feedback before inviting you to apply. So you'll get a review, and if there's any additional information or questions we have, we'll ask all of that of you before we invite you to apply. We do provide technical assistance. We have loan officers that will work directly with you on all aspects of the project. You can do up to 100% financing. And we also allow to have multiple sources of funding for your project. So if you're getting a grant for part of it, we can fund the other part of it, that type of thing. With iBank, we have low competitive fixed interest rates for up to 30 years. Now, the term does depend on the useful life of the project. So if the useful life of the project is only 25 years, the maximum term we could do is 25 years. We are AAA rated, so our cost of funds tends to be a little bit lower, so we're able to pass those low costs on to you. We don't have you guys compete against others. There's no wait list. There's no scoring mechanism. There's no rounds of funding. We are taking applications on a continuous basis, and we offer first come, first served. We issue our own bonds to fund our loan program, so we don't run out of funds, which is great. And you get transparency every step of the way. Over here on the right, you'll see that we have a couple of different repayment methods. First repayment method is our enterprise fund repayment. So what that is that we take a pledge on the system revenues or the revenue stream. So for example, a sewer fund, a water fund, parking fund, that type of thing. The second repayment method we have is a general fund repayment. Now, this is a leaseback financing, and we can use any unencumbered asset as the leased asset. So fire station, city hall, community center, things like that. Now, just bear in mind that we do require an executed reimbursement resolution prior to submitting your loan to the iBank board to be reviewed and approved. This allows for reimbursement for cost expenditures, so soft and hard costs that are incurred prior to iBank financing. So we do allow for that. Go ahead, next slide, Stephen. Eligible borrowers. So we pretty much, our ISERV program pretty much serves most municipalities, special districts, cities, counties, state agencies, and joint power authorities. Now, for the joint powers authorities, we do have to consider a consistent revenue stream. So we review the JPA agreement, and one thing that we do require is that the members of the JPA cannot leave during the term of the loan, since that would impact the revenue stream. Nonprofits are also eligible with sponsorships from a public agency. But how do we define that sponsorship? The nonprofit should have been formed by the public agency itself. A couple of factors to also consider are who owns the project and who benefits of the project. We want both of those answers to be the public entity. Go ahead, and next slide, Stephen. All right. Our infrastructure loans can finance a wide variety of projects with one exception. We cannot do housing. What we can do, though, is we can do the infrastructure around the housing. Our infrastructure loans are available amounts from $50,000 to $25 million, again, with loan terms up to 30 years, as long as the useful life of the project supports the term. Another great benefit of this program is there are no matching fund requirements. Again, we can do 100% financing, or we can do multiple financing sources to cover the financing. So if you have, again, reserves that you're going to use, a loan from another entity, or grant funds, we can go ahead and do loans along with those types of funding. For our climate financing, that includes loans for projects that help meet help the state meet the goals for greenhouse gas reduction, water conservation, and environmental preservation. These loans range from approximately $500,000 to $30 million. There are different programs within different units at iBank that do address climate financing. One of those is the Bay Area Quality Management District in collaboration with iBank, has the Climate Tech program. Our green bonds, that goes through our bond unit here at iBank. Our Clean Center, which is the California Lending for Energy and Environmental Needs, and that is with the loan origination unit. Our Climate Catalyst Fund, and we have a Chief Deputy Dan Adler who heads this, and he specifically deals with biomass, ag, and ZEV-related projects for right now. And the iSurf also does green loans, like organics projects for municipalities. Next slide, Stephen. Now, as far as project planning and timelines, let's just go over the process a little bit. So once we receive an inquiry from a borrower, we'll coordinate a conference call with you to get the project details. One of the ways that you can get your inquiry over to us is either in our loan program inbox, which is our email. We have an iSurf and Climate Catalyst intake forms on our website, and there's a link on there that you can go ahead and click on it, and there's a form, and that gets sent directly over to us, and we review those on a daily basis. Once we get that inquiry and do that conference call, we'll do a preliminary review. We'll ask you for cost estimates, financials, debt documents, rate studies, if that's relevant. Typically, we want 5 years of historical cash flow to review and projections as well, especially for water districts. And we look at rate studies, and if they don't necessarily cash flow historically, we can look at the projections based on your rate increases. Once we complete our analysis, which can take up to 4 to 6 weeks, we'll present the project to our internal credit risk committee, and then we potentially can invite you to apply. Once the application is received, it takes 60 to 90 days for the iBank board approval. Now, that can be expedited. If you have a project that just has to go now, we can expedite that. And the indicative interest rate quoted is approved and locked at the board meeting. Then after iBank approval, you typically have about 90 days to execute the financing agreement. And once the financing agreement is executed, you'll be making your principal and interest payments. You have 2 years from the project board approval to complete your construction. We can do longer, but that is on an exception basis. And then I'm going to go ahead and kick this back over to Stephen.
Thank you, Lydia. And right now we're just looking at a couple of projects that we've done in the past and recently. So we have I don't know how many of you all have flown out of the Fresno airport, but we did a project with them for a 7-story parking garage. And also just last month, we had the County of Sacramento come to us with a $35 million project to construct an enclosed transfer station for organic waste, food waste, and soil papers to comply with SB 1383. The Las Galinas Valley Sanitary District was a project that we also worked on, and that project came to us from one of the CFCC funding fairs where we met the director at one of the funding fairs. So that's why we really like presenting at these events. It helps us get some business and help municipalities get their projects going. And now we're going to talk about a few other programs that iBank has. One is the bond financing program, and as Lydia mentioned earlier, they also do our iSurf bond. So anytime we start running low on funds, we just issue another bond. But here are the types of bonds that we do: 501c3 projects. And these typically include things like YMCAs, educational facilities, museums, community centers. Exempt facilities typically are airports, docks, hydroelectric, utility, and intercity rail projects. Public agency revenue bonds entails transit, water, and wastewater systems, and industrial development typically covers construction or acquisition of facilities and equipment. And as you see on the right-hand side of the screen, this is the Peterson Automotive Museum. It's a beautiful building down in LA that we did for $20 million. I was told that the outside designs are supposed to be hot rod flames. So, you know, you might want to verify that if you ever get a chance to check out that building down there. Oh, let's skip. Also, we have a small business finance center. The Small Business Finance Center does not lend directly to small businesses, but what it does is work with the Financial Development Corporation, or FDCs, in which lenders turn around and lend to small businesses. The Small Business Finance Centers offers guarantees up to 80% of eligible loan amounts to lenders. iBank did get involved in a direct lending program called the California Rebuilding Fund. And this program is administered by some of our private sector partners. This is just another avenue for small businesses, as grant money may tend to run out here since, you know, COVID closures, or everybody's back opening, you know, for business now. So this might be a good venture for small businesses as well. iBank also issues green bonds and recently launched our new program called Climate Catalyst, which is available for both public and private sector companies. Climate Catalyst initial focus is forestry biomass management and utilization and climate smart agriculture. And here is some of our contact information. The infrastructure loans comes direct to the unit. It does not go to one particular person. So all of us will get this email. So you don't have to worry about, you know, if someone's out, if your information got through, it will reach one of us. Also, our phone number, and you can follow us on social media at any one of those platforms, and also our website. And I'd just like to say that doing business with iBank, you will get a great personal touch from our small dedicated staff, and our staff of experts really mirrors the California diverse population. And so we encourage you to visit our website to sign up for emails and updates, and follow us on your favorite social media platform. And we'll do our best to answer any questions that you have in the breakout room. So for that, I just want to say thank you, and I will turn it back over to the hands of SWRCB.
Thank you, John. Steve and Lydia, that was great information. I really appreciate learning all about various funding opportunities and money that iBank has. Because it seems like you guys have a lot of money all the time. But that's just my opinion, but you know. So let me start sharing my screen again. Okay, our next speaker coming up is Ron Miller. He's from the California Governor's Office of Emergency Services. He's going to give us some great information on their funding opportunities. I'll stop sharing my screen and start letting you share your screen.
Thank you, SWRCB. Good morning, everyone. All right. Thanks for the opportunity. My name is Ron Miller. I'm a program manager here at California Office of Emergency Services. And this morning I'm going to present on the hazard mitigation grants that are available through Cal OES. I'll cover the basic eligibility requirements, talk about our funding cycles and the application process, and most importantly, tell you how to contact us so that we can talk about your specific project to determine if it's eligible and get you in the pipeline so that you can obtain some of this funding to make your community more resilient to natural hazards. And then I will be in a virtual booth after the presentations so that we can talk about your specific projects if you have any questions. This funding is FEMA funding. It's federal funding from the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. It's administered in California by CalOES, and it's for hazard mitigation. So this definition of hazard mitigation is kind of a loaded definition. This program is for funding long-term independent solutions that reduce future risk to life and property from specific natural hazards. It's an ongoing process with the idea of breaking the cycle of repeated damage and repair. So we want to make the infrastructure stronger so that it doesn't get damaged in a future natural hazard event. If we can do this for California, these natural hazard events will come and go, and they will not actually result in disasters. So that is our goal. There are three main programs within FEMA's Hazard Mitigation Assistance umbrella. The Hazard Mitigation Grant Program, HMGP. This funding is available whenever there's a presidentially declared major disaster declaration. So we never know when that's going to happen. It could happen tomorrow. But when those declarations occur, it means that California is going to get money to do hazard mitigation projects. So that's the program where we get most of our funding is the HMGP program. The two other programs are called the non-disaster programs, referred to as BRIC and FMA. Building Resilient Infrastructure in Communities is an annual nationally competitive program. Every year in August, FEMA will release their Notice of Funding Opportunity, and that kicks off the process. That process got kicked off. We're underway right now, and we will be receiving those sub-applications in December, and we'll be submitting those to FEMA in January of next year. The Flood Mitigation Assistance Program has a similar timeline. FEMA releases the Notice of Funding Opportunity in August. The Flood Mitigation Assistance Program is restricted only to be able to protect properties that are covered by policies from the National Flood Insurance Program. So it's a smaller population that's eligible for that. But if your community is a participating entity and you've got NFIP insured properties, then definitely reach out to us about that project, that program. Right now, we have one current open funding opportunity, and this is for the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program post-fire for fiscal year 2022. So we are currently accepting and reviewing notices of interest. The deadline for those notices of interest is November 21st, and then the sub-applications will be due by January 11th. So the HMGP post-fire program is funding that FEMA makes available to us as a result of fire management assistance grant declarations. So whenever there's a fire management assistant grant declared in California, we get a little over $1 million that gets accumulated, and then we're making that money available, and it's prioritized to the communities that were impacted by those recent fires. So if you are from Santa Barbara County, Orange County, Mariposa County, Siskiyou, Riverside, El Dorado, or Placer, you definitely want to submit a notice of interest by November 21st, because you will be prioritized for this funding, and we typically don't get enough sub-applications directly from those communities. So please do contact us and consider submitting a notice of interest if you're from those counties. We're going to prioritize those counties for funding and prioritize those counties for specifically wildfire and post-wildfire mitigation actions. So that includes defensible space, ignition-resistant construction, hazardous fuels reduction, and then the post-fire impacts from erosion control, slope stabilization, and debris flow mitigation. There is the standard benefit cost requirement for this program, but you can utilize the pre-calculated benefits for those soil stabilization and reforestation projects. So definitely check those out if you're from those counties. There is the standard 75 federal share, 25% non-federal share requirement. But if your community is a socially disadvantaged community or low-income community, you may qualify for the Prepare California initiative, which is state funding that covers that required non-federal match. So if you want to talk about the potential for this program, definitely meet me in the virtual booth after the presentations and we can talk more about that. Back to the general eligibility requirements for our programs. This funding is available to state agencies, local governments, special districts, federally recognized tribes, and for the HMGP program, some private nonprofit organizations serving a governmental purpose. So the other requirement is that you must have a FEMA approved and locally adopted local hazard mitigation plan. So if you do not have a local hazard mitigation plan or your local hazard mitigation plan may be expiring, please contact us about getting a grant to update your plan or develop a new plan. Private nonprofits do not have that local hazard mitigation plan requirement if they otherwise qualify. Other eligibility requirements for the project is the project has to be a long-term standalone solution that reduces risk to people and property from natural hazards. Temporary measures are not eligible. The projects have to be cost-effective using FEMA's benefit cost analysis toolkit. This is often the deal breaker on these projects. This BCA requirement is a significant hurdle. We can provide technical assistance to help you with this, but what it comes down to is you have to be able to document the benefits of the project, or you have to be able to document historical damages that will be prevented by this project once it's implemented. So the BCA is a big one. We often instruct sub-applicants to look at that BCA before you spend a lot of time on the sub-application because we want to help you make sure that you're going to be able to meet that cost effectiveness requirement. Most of the programs have a 25% non-federal match required unless the community is eligible for that Prepare California initiative that provides state funding to cover that match. So if you have a socially disadvantaged community with high hazard risk, you may qualify. So please contact us and look into that. Most of these projects have to be completed within a 36-month period. In FEMA's next policy guidance, that may be expanded to 48 months in the future. These projects have to obtain environmental clearance from CEQA and NEPA. And if you've started the project before FEMA approves it, it will be ineligible. So no construction, no ground disturbance before FEMA's approval. Planning requirements, I talked about having a local hazard mitigation plan. The requirements are a little bit different between HMGP and BRIC and FMA. So at HMGP, you can apply with us if you don't have a plan in place if you are developing a plan. It's going to take 12 to 18 months for your community to develop a plan. So we encourage you to start now so that you will be eligible at the time of FEMA obligation for HMGP. It's more restrictive for BRIC and FMA. You have to have your plan in place at time of application and at time of award. These local hazard mitigation plans are valid for 5 years. And so some communities kind of forget about the plan they apply to us, and then all of a sudden they learn that their plan is going to expire. So if you don't know the status of your plan, please join me in the virtual booth afterwards. I will look up your community and look up the expiration date of your plan. And if it's close, then you can get the forces moving to get that plan updated. The hazard type that you're going to address in your project does need to be addressed in your local hazard mitigation plan. As I mentioned, these planning activities are eligible to receive funding. We will fund up to $150,000 for a single jurisdiction plan. And if your community participates in a multi-jurisdiction plan, we'll fund up to $250,000 for multi-jurisdiction plans. These projects cover the main natural hazards. The big three in California are wildfire, flood, and earthquake, but we can also cover tsunami and wind and drought. Drought is a difficult project type to address. We've got to make it eligible within the guidelines that FEMA provides. So if you have a drought project, definitely make an appointment to talk with us about that, and we can help determine if it may be eligible for this program. Ineligible activities are any activities where physical work has already started. Ineligible activities include projects that don't reduce risk to human life or property, and projects that are dependent upon a contingent action in order to be effective. So these have to be standalone projects that will function without any outside intervention. Preparedness activities are not eligible. We often hear from communities that want to develop an evacuation route. We can't directly work on evacuation routes, but we can sometimes address your needs in other ways. For example, with a hazardous fuels reduction project that would make an evacuation route more safe. If there's power lines along those roads, that's critical infrastructure that we can protect with a hazardous fuels reduction project. So sometimes there's ways for us to meet your needs. We just have to do it in a way that speaks the FEMA language in terms of what is eligible. So that's why we encourage you to contact us and talk through your specific project. Projects that address deferred maintenance or rehabilitation are not eligible unless they increase the level of protection. So just because something is at the end of its useful life doesn't mean that we can't help you address that issue as long as we're increasing the level of protection from a natural hazard. So again, that's one of those nuances where we encourage you to contact us so that we can talk through your specific project. The sub-application process always starts with a notice of interest. The notice of interest is just a brief proposal for you to communicate to us the basics of what you want to do. And if we approve your notice of interest, you'll be invited to attend sub-application development workshops and submit a complete full sub-application. That is a major effort. So we use this notice of interest process to help you not spend valuable resources on developing a complete sub-application if you won't be eligible. And prior to that notice of interest, we are open to talking about your project to further, refine whether or not it's eligible, even before you submit the notice of interest. So definitely contact us if you have a project. Your sub-application gets submitted to us. We review it. We may do a request for information process where we go back and forth and collect some additional information to make that project more complete. And then we submit it to FEMA for FEMA's approval. And then FEMA may have an additional RFI process. I mentioned the BRIC and FMA programs. The BRIC and FMA 2023 will hit next August. So if you have a potential project for BRIC FMA in the future, it's never too early to start talking with us about that project. So think of Brick and FMA August 2023. And then for the HMGP program, anytime you know that there's a presidentially declared major disaster, that means you should check our website out for the new funding opportunity. We are always accepting notices of interest for HMGP. So if you have an idea, don't wait for the next major disaster declaration. Go ahead and submit your notice of interest, and we'll begin working with you to fine tune that into an eligible project. These are links to resources that are available on our webpage. Probably the easiest way to find the webpage is with an internet search. And we've updated our webpage, so I think it's a little more user-friendly. So please go there for more information. But this last slide is the most important. This is an email address where you can submit an email to us to request a scoping meeting. If you want to talk about a potential project, reach out to us through this email address, and we will get some subject matter experts on the phone with you to discuss your potential project. If you can include in the email maybe a little bit of information about what the project might be, that might help us to get the right folks in the meeting with you. So that's everything that I have for this morning. Definitely join me in the virtual booth after the presentations if you have any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ron. That was great information. And I do encourage all, if you have any questions about FEMA funding, to go ask in the virtual booth. That would be the best place to go and ask any type of question about anything you heard today. I will share my screen. Okay, that was our next speaker is going to be Hamali and Aberjay from the State Water Resource and Control Board. They're going to be presenting information about the various funding opportunities that they have. I will stop sharing my screen and have you guys start sharing yours. You there?
Thank
I know
you, Sarisa. Give me a minute here.
Oh, whoo, girl, you had me scared there for a minute, but okay, thank you.
We cannot hear you.
Hello?
Hi, Sarisa.
Okay, you there? Okay, great.
Yes. Hi, you should be able to share my see my screen now.
Yes, we can, and we
All
can also
right.
hear you.
Okay, great. Hi, good morning. My name is Himali Rodrigo, and I am with the Division of Financial Assistance at the State Water Resources Control Board, and I'm going to be presenting along with my colleague, Aparjit Ranji, and I will be presenting actually the current funding opportunities offered by our organization. So this morning I'm going to be actually covering three parts. Me and Aparjit will be covering three parts of one would be the funding program and the financial assistance submittal tool, and to kind of show you how to stay informed about our current funding programs. So the first part would be all the current funding programs, and I'm going to be starting off with the drinking water funding programs that are offered. Before that, I want to actually give you a little bit overview of the safer and affordable funding for equity and resilience program that's called SAFER. And the SAFER is a set of tools and funding sources and regulatory authorities designed to ensure that 1 million Californians who currently lack of safe and affordable drinking water will receive safe and affordable drinking water as quickly as possible. So SAFER program is also, it aims to reach sustainable operation of all states' drinking water systems, and to the goal is to actually provide just safe, accessible, affordable drinking water for all the Californians. So the program was established from the Safe and Affordable Drinking Water Fund through Senate Bill 200 back in 2019. The fund will offer, provide actually 130 million per year that will be used to develop and implement sustainable solutions for small water systems that have either violations for drinking water standards. So the money actually will be spent on operation and maintenance costs, and either to it'll cover costs for consolidation with large water systems, and to either provide replacement of some sort, or funding to administer to run the small water system. So again, like I mentioned, I'll be actually mainly covering the drinking water funding programs. There are 8 funding programs that I'll touch upon. And before we do that, I'm also going to cover and show you the abbreviations and some of the acronyms that we use, so that you don't get lost during the presentation. So basically, let me show you here. So these are some of the main common abbreviations that we use when we talk about our funding program. Mainly it's the DAC status and SDAC, or we talk about the medium DAC, or if it's POU, POE. So when I use these terms, don't be alarmed. So I have provided you all this information, and just make sure you refer to this slide if you are in doubt at any point. So the first program I'm going to be talking about is the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund program, and it assists public water systems in financing the cost of drinking water and infrastructure projects. And some of the eligible applicants are the small community water systems, some of the non-transient, non-community disadvantaged communities, or small disadvantaged communities that serve less than 3,300 service connections, or less than a population of 10,000 are eligible. Sometimes the expanded small community water systems that are disadvantaged or severely disadvantaged are eligible also. And the communities with at least 15 service connections or have at least a community of 25 people. That means year round are eligible to apply for this type of funding. And the priority for this funding is given for projects addressing category A through C or consolidation. Consolidation is regardless of category. If you're consolidating, the category doesn't matter. So the A through C means that the categories are based off of health risks. So the health risks are actually, again, like I said, the A through C, this is kind of like a chart that shows that based on the health risk level, in accordance with the criteria of immediate health risk, it could be category A is immediate health risk, and B would be untreated or at-risk sources, and C, it's called chronic compliance or water storage problem. So if you are within any of these categories, priorities again given to those. And you can refer to our policy for developing the fund expenditure plan for the state for the safe, affordable drinking water fund. And you can read through it and get more information on these type of categories and what's eligible and what's not. Next, I'm going to talk about some of the planning grants that are offered. It's offered actually based upon the population. If you have a less than 10,000 population, and if your median household income is less than 80% of the statewide median household income, you are eligible up to 100% grant. And there is no cap for the planning grant, and the planning grants count towards the maximum principal forgiveness community. It's eligible for over a 5-year period. And the next one is the construction grant that the small disadvantaged communities or the severely disadvantaged communities mainly are eligible. And there are other categories like you see here are also eligible. And what it is it is a 100% grant or principal forgiveness for projects addressing categories A through C, or if it's a consolidation project. And the maximum of 60% or up to 80% is given based upon a good cause, and that is approved by our deputy director. If it's 80%, then these numbers are per connection for a disadvantaged or severely disadvantaged community. And it should be noted that for consolidation projects where a small water system is considered into a large water system, the State Water Board uses the small water systems population and the disadvantaged status for qualifying for the grant. And for construction projects addressing D through F, the State Water Board can award a grant or principal forgiveness up to 100% for a small disadvantaged community, depending on the residential water rates, and that's up to a maximum of 40,000 per connection. The next one I want to touch upon is the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund repayable construction loan. It is a zero interest or a low interest loan for planning or construction projects for small and large systems that are not eligible for grant funding. So the current rate for this one is 1.1%. And if you're interested, you can refer to this type of loan if you're not eligible for a grant. For consolidation, so under the DW SRF funding program, it supports consolidation. So applicants are required to evaluate the feasibility of consolidation in order to be eligible for this funding. So if a receiving water system does not have sufficient capacity to serve the additional customers, the grant funding may be eligible to even increase the capacity. So this is, like I said, the first step is to evaluate the feasibility of consolidation. Then you need to figure out if someone's in support of consolidation. So this type of thing would be actually supported through our funding programs. So if you are actually considering consolidation, there are some incentives that are offered for the systems. If a public water system, if they are physically consolidating with one or more community that is having at least 15 service connections or a year-round population of at least 25 people, and they are eligible up to 10 million in a 0% interest rate financing from available sources for a construction project that's totally benefit receiving a water system, which is a large community. So that's called a incentive project. And also there would be a grant or principal forgiveness funding up to 5 million per community. So that's one option. The other one is a managerial consolidation, and this is that's another type, and that would provide you to actually do interconnection or connect to a master meter, like if you're going into a master meter agreement, to one or more small community water systems. And then at this point, they're eligible up to 2 million in 0% interest rate financing from available sources for construction project. And that is also to solely benefit the receiving water system. And that's called the incentive project. And also the grant funding is given up to 1 million per community on this under this consolidation. So the next drinking water funding program I want to introduce is the countrywide and regional funding program. This addresses drought-related and contamination issues for small water systems and state small water systems, and also domestic wells that are serving disadvantaged communities and low-income households. So eligible applicants are the counties and eligible partner entities, and recipients are awarded funding to implement programs to respond to urgent water needs. So some of the eligible projects under this one could be the assessment of a community community itself or the drinking water well testing, which is another assessment, or if you need like an interim solution like bottled water or tanks or hot water. And other eligible project would be like a well repair, or if you want to replace the well, that type of thing would be also eligible. And this is these applications are continuously accepted through the FAST submittal tool. And I know my colleague's gonna touch upon the FAST submittal tool later on during the presentation. So the next one is the urgent drinking water needs funding. This addresses urgent drinking water needs due to drought, contamination, or other eligible emergencies. So eligible applicants include public agencies, tribal governments, nonprofits serving a disadvantaged community, or a community water system that serves a disadvantaged community. So the projects that would include that are eligible could be the interim water supplies, again, bottled or hot water, emergency funding to repair or replace critical components of a water system. They might have failed or had like immediate health risk of failure, and maybe funding could be used for like an installation of POU or POE. Again, I'm going to mention POU. POE is point of use or point of entry. And to also buy devices to address contamination, installation of vending machines to provide like alternative safe drinking water solutions. So applicants should be submitted, they should actually submit a application via email. And I encourage you to visit the funding program web page if you really are interested in applying and to get some more specific information on this program. So next I'm going to be actually introducing you to the domestic water well program. So the domestic water well program, there are 3 domestic water well programs. So the first one is the drinking water well replacement program, and it is administered by RCAC. This program provides assistance to eligible disadvantaged households with private domestic wells and small water systems to replace failed drinking water wells. The applications are available on the RCAC website for this one. So the next one is a household private well assistance program. And this is administered by the self-help enterprises. This program provides assistance to disadvantaged households with domestic private wells and state small water systems for well testing and installation of point of use and point of entry for wells with contamination issues. So the last one under the domestic water well program is the regional private domestic well abandonment, repair, replacement, and connection program. And this one is also administered by the self-help enterprises program. This program provides assistance to disadvantaged communities who have failed or have failing drinking water wells. it can provide assistance with well repair or replacement. So if you're interested, you are encouraged you to go to the Self-Help Enterprises website and check out the eligibility and any of other criteria that is available for the under that program. So let's see here. The next one would be the emergency bottled and hauled drinking water funding program. So there are 3 bottled water programs and 1 tanks and hauling water program. These programs actually provide bottled water and haul water for households. And these programs are administered by nonprofit organizations or sometimes public entities. The counties that are served for each program is noted here, and there are specific program contacts depending on the county you are in. So if you're trying to get more information, try to contact them directly, and they should be able to walk you through the application process. So this tank and hauling water program is run by Self-Help Enterprises, just for you to give you an idea. So the next one is the Drinking Water for Schools grant program. And Drinking Water for Schools grant program is to improve access to drinking water and improve the quality of drinking water in public schools. So the projects include would be point of use and point of entry treatment systems, fixture replacement, installation of drinking water fountain, and interim water supply. This program is also administered by Self-Help and also RCAC. So if you're interested, you need to contact these 2 administrators to get more information on that. So I'm gonna go over the Bottled Water for Schools program. The Bottled Water for Schools program provides bottled drinking water for public schools. And to apply, you would need to contact the program administrator, which is going to be RCAC, Rural Community Assistance Corporation, for this one. And eligible applicants would be either preschools, childcare facilities, K through 12, public schools. So the last one I want to discuss today is the backup generator funding program. This is new. So backup generator funding program provides backup generators to drinking water systems that do not have adequate backup electricity supply. And it makes sure that it is that system is continually operated without any power failure. So the funding program is administered by the California Rural Water Association and Rural Community Assistance Corporation. So that is CRWA and RCAC. So eligible recipients must serve a small disadvantaged community with more than 50% of the homes need to be primary residences. And it must be classified as a community water system. So it excludes any type of mobile home parks and RV parks. So one caveat for this program is that you must have agreed to have funding or agreed to have a not funded, agreed to have a technical, managerial, or financial assessment done via the technical assistance program. So those two go hand in hand in this case. And you need, if you're interested, you could go to the website and get some more information on how to apply for this program. And also something to keep in mind is that the deadline for this program is December 9th to submit applications. So I have covered mostly the drinking water funding programs, and I'm going to hand over to Aparjit Ranji to go over the funding programs, the rest of the funding programs that are offered through the State Water Board. Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Himali. Let me go ahead and share my screen. So Himali, if you want to go ahead and stop sharing, then I can go ahead and share my screen. All right, hopefully everybody can see my screen. Thanks, Himali. As Himali mentioned, my name is Aparjit Ranji. I'm at the State Water Board Division of Financial Assistance in the bonds unit. So I'll be going over some of the wastewater funding programs that State Board DFA has to offer. So before we move forward, some definitions, wastewater definitions. Himali, in her presentation, already went through some of the definitions. Just wanted to point out, a small community is a community with a population of less than 20,000. Large community population of more than 20,000. So this definition is a little bit different than the drinking water definitions that Himali presented in her slides. So I'll go over this Clean Water State Revolving Fund. The purpose is to fund planning and construction projects to restore and maintain compliance with your permits. So these are your waste discharge requirements permits, National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System permits. Eligible applicants under this funding program are your public agencies, your 501c3 nonprofit organizations, your tribal organizations. Some of the eligible projects are projects with some wastewater treatments, water reclamation facilities, some of the NPS projects that are identified in the California NPS plan, stormwater reduction type projects, some treatment facilities. They are considered eligible under this funding program. Like most of the funding programs, applications are continuously accepted in FAST. As Himali mentioned, I'll talk about FAST in one of the later slides in the presentation. Some of the reference documents that we use for this funding program, one of them is an intended use plan. It's also called IUP. We also use a policy for implementing the Clean Water State Revolving Fund. So just like drinking water SRF funding program, and this Clean Water SRF funding program also have planning grants or principal forgiveness. The eligibility is based on criteria listed in the table below. So if the community population is less than 20,000, and if the community is DAC, disadvantaged community, then the 100% of the project cost can be used as a grant. There's no limit for max grant per project. Some additional caveats, so any amount dispersed to the community under this planning grant is usually subtracted from the maximum construction grant. And also the maximum grant a community can receive is all based on planning, technical assistance, and the construction that the funding that the community receives in a 5-year period. So this funding program also has construction grants or principal forgiveness for construction projects, and the eligibility is based on the criteria listed in the table. So if the community is small, non-DAC, and the wastewater rates are greater than 4% of the MHI, then about 50% of the total project cost can be used as a grant. So no limits for the max grant per project, but max grant per household is capped at 45,000 or 125,000 for septic to sewer projects. Similar criteria for small DACs and SDACs, but the wastewater rates doesn't apply, and the 100% of the total project cost can be used as a grant. For septic to sewer projects, if the wastewater rates are greater than 1.5%, 50% of the total project cost can be used as a grant. There is a cap of 25 million per project and $75,000 for max grant per household. Additionally, our deputy director has some additional delegated authority based on criteria listed in the bullet points on the slide. So if you're not eligible for principal forgiveness, either for the construction project or the planning project, this funding program does have low interest financing. It's pretty low. As of now, it's 2%, so which is pretty good deal given the circumstances these days. There's also an incentive of reduced interest rate if the financing term is going to be 20 years or less. Next, I'll talk about the water recycling funding program. It funds planning and construction projects that promotes the beneficial uses of treated municipal wastewater, and just to augment or offset, any of the state and local freshwater supplies. So eligible projects under this funding program, projects that deal with recycled water treatments, recycled water storage, distribution, pumping, groundwater recharge, indirect potable use, or surface water augmentation. This funding program also accepts application via FAST. We'll talk about that in one of the later slides. So next, I'll talk about some of the site cleanup funding programs that the State Board DFA has to offer in the next few slides. So first one is the Orphan Site Cleanup Fund. It provides grants for cleanup of sites that are contaminated by leaky UST tanks and the sites where there's no financial responsible party. So the projects that are generally eligible are projects in which grantee or applicants are not eligible for UST cleanup funds. The applicants or grantee did not cause release of the UST, release of the petroleum USTs, petroleum from the USTs. Grantee has no affiliation with the party that contributed the release of the petroleum, and the projects where the principal source of contamination is from a petroleum UST. So this is one of the few funding programs that accepts applications by mail. So this one does have the cleanup grants and assessment grants. Both of the cleanup and assessment grants could be applied via mail. There's forms and applications on the website. So those could be downloaded, filled up, and applications submitted by mail. So next, I'll talk about the Site Cleanup Sub-Account Program. It's funded by SB 445. It funds projects that remediate harm to human health and safety. That's typically caused by existing surface water or groundwater contamination. Eligible projects under this program, projects to investigate source of the groundwater contamination or surface water contamination, projects that remediate the threat to human health that's caused by the surface water or groundwater contamination, projects that has some sort of regulatory order, cleanup and abatement order, or some sort of notifications from the regulatory agencies, and projects typically that are not eligible for any of the other DFA funding programs. Applications, again, are accepted continuously via FAST. There's more information available on the website, and we also have a fact sheet for this funding program online. Some additional funding programs that the DFA has to offer. I'll talk about these two in the next few slides. So the first one is the non-point source program. The purpose is to minimize NPS pollution from land use activities such as ag, forestry, marinas, hydro modifications, or wetlands. Eligible projects are projects within an NPS priority watershed that typically improves an impaired water. So this funding program is currently accepting applications in FAST, and deadline to submit the application is December 19th, so about a month and a half from now. So DFA does have a technical assistance funding program. It's a pretty big funding program. It's to provide assistance to develop and implement drinking water and wastewater needs. The assistance is typically provided for the following type of projects. These are the examples, but they are not limited to. So assistance is provided for project plannings, funding applications, environmental services, rate studies, leak detection, capacity building. Just a note that the technical assistance for groundwater and stormwater type projects are severely limited at this point. Eligibility for this funding program, it varies by assistance or the type of assistance, but the general preference is to provide assistance to small DACs. So we do have a TA form. It's called a TA form on our website. So generally, applicants can fill out that technical assistance form and submit that form to the email address on this slide to request for technical assistance. And then somebody should be able to get back to you. So we talk about FAST a lot. It's a financial assistance application submittal tool. It's an online database. It's a web database. It's available 24 hours a day. So most of our funding programs do accept applications via FAST. So if you need to submit an application, a FAST account is required. There's also help desk to help you with your application. And if you're like me, who forgets your password all the time, they can also reset your password or link your accounts. So whatever assistance you need to submit an application, they can help you. They're available Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. Email address and phone number is listed on the slide. So as always, if you need more information, our website has information regarding all the funding programs. There's also a subscription email list. So if you're interested in one program or multiple programs or all of them, you can subscribe to the email subscriptions. Your name and email address is required. As I mentioned, there's about like 30 subscription lists that you can subscribe to. On behalf of the State Board, I would like to thank you for having us present at this funding fair. We do hope to talk to you during the breakout room in the afternoon. If you have any questions, you can also contact us at this number. So thank you very much for having us, and I'll go ahead and stop sharing. And Teresa, back to you.
Thank you. That was great information from the State Water Board. I encourage all to go there if you have questions about anything that you heard today, or again, as the presenter said, please stop by the breakout rooms and discuss any further questions you may have. So let me start sharing my screen so we can move on to the next presenter. That presenter is Sarah Newsom. She's from the Strategic Growth Council, and I will stop sharing my screen and let her share hers. After her presentation, we'll take a small break, so hang in there, everyone. Sarah, I'll stop sharing and turn it over to you.
Hello, thank you everyone. My name is Sarah Newsham. I am a program associate at the California Strategic Growth Council, whose mission is to build healthy, thriving, and resilient communities for all. Today, I'll be presenting on 3 grant programs we administer in support of this goal, and I've put the links to the websites for each of those programs in the chat in the order in which I'll be speaking about them. The first program is the Regional Climate Collaboratives Program, or RCC. RCC is a capacity building grant program aimed at supporting under-resourced communities within a region to access funding to plan and implement climate mitigation, adaptation, and resiliency projects. RCC will do that by funding capacity building activities that help communities identify and plan around community identified climate priorities to help prepare for available funding. In round 1, $8.35 million is available for 6 to 12 awards of $500,000 to $1.75 million each. The round 1 application deadline has passed, but the round 2 application will likely be released in June 2023. The grant term is 3 years, and up to 25% of the funds may be paid via advance payment instead of reimbursement. The activities the program will fund center around 2 main strategies to build capacity. 1, build relationships, identify priorities, and develop plans, policies, and projects. And 2, act as a local technical assistance provider who can translate funding program requirements and frame them within a local context. All of these activities serve the goal of getting more climate funds into under-resourced communities. And the program objectives go beyond just developing plans and projects that can be implemented, and also focus on the development of networks and processes that will lead to more equitable outcomes. These include building social infrastructure, centering community engagement and decision-making, and developing equity-centered processes. Examples of eligible program applicants are listed on this slide. The program is open to all organizations with a history of providing community-based outreach and technical assistance. In addition to the organizations on this slide, that might include academic institutions, resource conservation districts, faith-based organizations, or any other group that does this work in a local context. RCC grants will provide funding for different organizations to come together and form a collaborative stakeholder structure that identifies how the partners will make decisions and work with one another. Each applicant team must identify a managing stakeholder who has the financial and administrative capacity to manage the contract with SGC and administer sub-grants to partner organizations in the collaborative. As I said, the round 1 applications have closed and awards will be now announced in December. The round 2 application in NOFA will be released in June 2023, most likely. Technical assistance is available to all applicants who submit a pre-proposal, and we will release more information about our round 2 technical assistance soon. And anyone who's interested can sign up for our technical assistance listserv here. Next, I will talk about the Transformative Climate Communities program, which is the program that I work on. PCC supports community-led transformation to enable the California communities most impacted by pollution to choose their own goals, strategies, and projects to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and local air pollution and achieve environmental, health, and economic benefits. TCC makes significant investments within a neighborhood to support multiple integrated projects as part of a community-driven proposal. To date, the program has invested over $326 million in 33 communities across California through planning grants and implementation grants. Grantees implement community-led development and infrastructure projects that build resilience and improve livelihoods and access to key community destinations. Every grant includes multiple projects within a defined project area, which work together to advance the community's shared vision. A sample map of a project area is shown on this slide. For implementation grants, applicants may select from a menu of eligible project types shown here. Examples include affordable housing developments, electric car shares, transportation improvements, parks, urban greening, community gardens, residential water and energy efficiency projects, residential solar, and community microgrids. PCC also funds what we call transformative elements to ensure that the physical infrastructure investments provide direct and meaningful benefits to residents. Each project must include 3 transformative plans, which are funded through the grant. These are a community engagement plan to ensure robust community involvement and decision-making throughout the implementation of the grant, a workforce development plan to ensure economic benefits to residents through job training and job creation, a displacement avoidance plan to prevent the displacement of residents and businesses in the community. TCC offers 2 types of grants, implementation grants and planning grants. Eligible applicants for both types of grants include, but are not limited to, the ones listed on this slide. TCC has awarded 9 implementation grants since 2018, ranging from $10 to $66 million each. Like the RCC program, TCC also requires multiple co-applicants and utilizes a collaborative stakeholder structure to ensure community decision-making and oversight throughout the implementation process. The grant term is 5 years, and technical assistance is available to everyone during the application process and implementation. Up to 10% of the TCC funds can be used to meet basic environmental infrastructure needs, such as water and wastewater services. TCC also funds planning grants to help support communities in carrying out meaningful planning activities to prepare to apply for future TCC implementation grants or other sources of resilience funding. Grant terms are 2 years and have a minimum of 2 applicants, a lead applicant and a co-applicant. Application technical assistance is available to tribal communities and unincorporated communities. Awards in round 4 were up to $300,000 each. The planning grant is very flexible. The activities must be connected to the goals of the TCC program, but are unique to each community. Some examples of eligible activities include community planning processes, climate action and adaptation plans, project development, fiscal analyses and studies, updating policies and codes, and meaningful community engagement. Round 4 awards were approved just last week, and we will release the round 5 draft guidelines in mid-November for public comment. We will also host guidelines workshops during this time to solicit feedback on the draft guidelines. We will adopt the final round 5 guidelines in February of 2023 and release the NOFA and application in March. Applications will be due during the summer of 2023, with awards announced in the fall. We also have pre-application technical assistance available from now until round 5 to help you get ready to apply. So please visit our website for more information on that. And then there will be direct application technical assistance available during the application period. So if you have questions or would like to learn more, here's our contact information, and it's also linked in the chat. The final program I'll talk about is the Affordable Housing and Sustainable Communities Program. AHSC's purpose is to reduce GHG emissions through projects that implement land use, housing, transportation, and agricultural land preservation practices to support infill and compact development. AHSC aims to do this by bringing together affordable housing and transportation investments. AHSC's funding is 20% of cap and trade proceeds, which is about 400 or 500 million per cycle. The minimum award amount is $1 million and the maximum is 30 million. No more than 10 million can go to the transportation and infrastructure and transportation related amenities component. This slide shows the program components that AHSC funds. And as you can see, the funds for the affordable housing development is a loan, and the other award components are grants. On the right, this image gives a snapshot of the impact of the AHSC program through rounds 1 to 5. This doesn't include the most recent awards from round 6. In round 6, we awarded 37 projects for a total of $808 million, which was a combination of 2 cycles. And depending on general fund approval, we may have a similar award amount available in round 7. These are the eligible costs for an AHSC application, followed by examples of each cost type. So there's an affordable housing development, which is the brick and mortar, housing related infrastructure, which is required, the sustainable transportation investment, which can be transit vehicles, bike lanes, sidewalks, etc., transportation related amenities, and then eligible programs such as active transportation programs, transit ridership, tenant legal counseling, etc. This slide shows eligible applicants. The bolded ones are common applicants, which are a local government, transit agency or operator, developer, or qualified tribal entity. There are 26 total requirements in the guidelines, but some of the key project requirements are that the affordable housing development must be within a half mile of a transit station or stop. The project should demonstrate greenhouse gas reductions through fewer vehicle miles traveled. And project construction cannot have commenced as of the date of the application deadline. Capacity building technical assistance and direct application technical assistance are available. Please email us or visit our website for more information on technical assistance and other resources. Public comment recently closed on the round 7 draft guidelines, and the final guidelines are expected to be approved in December with the NOFA released in January. Applications will be due in March and the awards will be approved in August. For more information on AHSC, please reach out to us here. So that concludes my presentation. Thank you very much for your time, and we hope to partner with you in the future. I will be available for the first 30 minutes of the breakout rooms this afternoon and look forward to connecting with you there. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. That was great information on how you can get different funding for different community projects. Before we go into our first break, let me start sharing my screen. We're going to be going into a break, but before we do that, we have a small poll question we would like to ask everyone. If you would answer the poll question for us, we'd appreciate it. Oh, great. I am so thrilled to know that more than half of you are staying around to ask questions in our breakout room. Again, that's the opportunity to ask questions that I noticed in the chat that I could not or someone did not answer for you. That is a great place to get your answers and see if you have a project coming up. So with that, I thank you for participating in that poll. My computer says it's about 11:25, so since we're breaking early, we'll come back by 11:45. So if everyone wants to go ahead, we'll take a 15 to 20 minute break and we'll see you back here at 11:45. Okay, I'll repeat that. Hi, everyone. We're back from 11:45 from our break. And just before we're going to start with the federal agencies presentation. Our first presenter will be David White. He's going to give us a demonstration on how to use the grants portal that the federal agencies use. So I'll stop sharing my screen and have David start sharing his.
All right. Thank you very much. Let's see if I can do this correctly. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. And we
All
see-
right.
And we see your presentation.
Okay, well, let's do it. Good afternoon, everyone. Or good morning, everyone. My name is David White. I work for the United States Department of the Interior Bureau of Reclamation. Today, I'm going to talk about two separate but related things. One is using grants.gov to find notices of funding opportunity. The second will be on the opportunities through the United States Department of the Interior Bureau of Reclamation. So grants.gov. Most federal agencies, when they have federal funds to disperse, they solicit applications for funding through grants.gov. Not every agency uses grants.gov, and not every agency always uses grants.gov. But grants.gov is a great way for finding solicitations and applying for federal funding. So each federal funding agency has its own missions, goals, and expectations. And each agency usually tries to solicit applications through an open, transparent, and competitive process. And one of the best ways of doing that is through grants.gov, where the agency posts a NOFO, a Notice of Funding Opportunity. These used to be called FOAs, Funding Opportunity Announcements, but now they're NOFOs. And the NOFO, as we'll talk about in the next few minutes, is very explicit as to what it needs for a successful application. All right, grants.gov. It's important to realize funding is here for your project. Your project is not here for funding. What do I mean by that? It's important for you to look at the NOFO, because each NOFO will have specific criteria. Your project and your application, in order to be successful, need to be responsive to those criteria. Oftentimes we'll have great projects, but then the applicant is not responsive to the criteria, and that application and that project gets scored relatively low and they don't get funding. It is possible to design a project around funding, or even take a current project or proposal and tweak it a little bit to be responsive to the NOFO. It's important to keep in mind that each NOFO is separate and unique, and each NOFO does have its own criteria. Unfortunately, there is no one standard application for all NOFOs, so it's important to go over each NOFO carefully and understand what the agency is looking for. So when you're on grants.gov, you can search for NOFOs, ones that have already come and gone. Those would be closed or archived. Ones that are open and current, those are posted. And some agencies even put on grants.gov future NOFOs. Those are the ones that are forecasted. And each NOFO is going to try to give you a little bit of insight, I guess, into what each agency is looking for. All right, so on grants.gov, there are a lot of resources available for you to learn how to use grants.gov to your benefit. There are videos, there are different links for training, and you can even have grants.gov notify you by email when a particular NOFO is available. You can search and you can have these custom email notifications based upon particular search criteria. So when you go on grants.gov, one of the great ways of getting started is to search for grants. You can search again by forecasted, posted, closed, and archived. There are a lot of archived NOFOs out there. By looking at NOFOs that have already come and gone, it gives you an idea of the kind of information an agency might be looking for and how to style your project to be and your application to be responsive and competitive. The NOFOs can vary from year to year, including the criteria. So it's important to not only have an idea of what's come and gone, but also understand that things may change from one fiscal year to the next. There's a lot of different ways to search grants.gov. You can search by keywords, by funding agency. If you know the opportunity, the NOFO number, you can search it that way. There are limitations, as there are with many search databases. And one of those is you cannot search by geography. So if you wanted to know all the NOFOs that were available in Yolo County, that is not something that you can do on grants.gov. That does create a little bit of a limitation, and that's why sometimes it's good if you have an idea as to which agency you're best to work with, to contact them, and they'll give you a good idea of what they have available. When you do open up a particular NOFO, it will include all the information necessary to successfully apply. It will have the application itself, and it will have links to other forms that you will need to submit. So what does a NOFO have? Well, at the beginning is a synopsis that explains the funding agency. Sometimes it's the public law. It will have when the NOFO is open, when it closes, the amount of federal funds available. Sometimes the synopsis will include the amount of or percentage of non-federal funds which are required. And then as you go on, there are criteria. Each NOFO contains very detailed criteria. The better that you can answer these criteria, the better chance that your project will and your application will be successful. If these criteria ask a yes or no question, it's best to begin your response with yes or no. You can always follow it up with additional information, but it's in your better interest if a question is a criteria is a yes or no question to begin yes or no. Likewise, if a criteria requests that you use specific information such as a formula, please do that. If you feel like that formula is not the best way to describe your project, you can always supplement the required formula with your own. If you choose not to be responsive to the criteria, then most likely you will get a low score on that particular criterion, and there's a great chance that your application will not be successful. So once you've put together your application package, great thing about grants.gov is you can submit it online. And there's a little bit of information here about doing that. And then once you apply, then you'll receive some confirmations that you have successfully applied. What happens after that? Then usually the federal agency puts together an application review committee, which will then review your application. If they have additional questions, they will ask you, and then they will make a funding determination and reach out both to those who are successful and those that are not. Now, if you are successful, then most likely a grants officer will reach out to you and request for updated information and give you a better idea of any additional information that's required before they are able to sign a grant agreement for you. If you are unsuccessful, you can always request a debrief where the agency will go over the application process with you in your own particular application and give you an idea of whether how you could have potentially changed your application to make it more successful. So in terms of tips for applicants, please have a good understanding of the NOFO before you apply. If you have any questions, each NOFO will have a point of contact for that particular agency where you can ask questions. We do our best to answer the questions, but also we want to ensure a fair, open, and competitive process. So if we feel like answering your question may give you an unfair advantage, we will politely decline to answer that. It's important to keep in mind that for federally funded projects, NEPA is required. A NEPA compliance determination is required prior to any ground disturbing activities. We cannot do NEPA retrospectively. And so when you put together your schedule, please have that in mind. Here in California, part of the NEPA process includes a concurrence from SHPO, the State Historic Preservation Office. And that adds at least an additional sometimes 60 to 90 days. So the NEPA process itself may take easily 3 to 12 months. All right, and that's it for grants.gov. In the breakout room, I'll be happy to answer any questions about grants.gov. So I'm going to stop this and I'm going to share again because I've learned I have to do this. So let's then move on to reclamation. All right. United States Department of the Interior, Bureau of Reclamation. Reclamation manages federally owned water assets in 17 West-wide states. I'm based here in Sacramento in the California Great Basin region. We have 5 regions in the 17 states. We use 6 colors to those 5 regions just to keep it interesting. The Missouri Basin is combined with the Arkansas, Rio Grande, Texas, Gulf region. So that's a super region. Here in California, because of the way the rivers flow, California is included into different regions. The California Great Basin toward the north and the lower Colorado Basin toward the south. If you have a project in one region, that would be the region that you'd be working with. Our water conservation team, contact information is available here on the slides as well as in your booklet. If you have any questions, feel free to contact any of us. If we can't answer your question, we'll do our best to put you in touch with someone who can. Funding opportunities through reclamation come from 2 different sources. Here in the California Great Basin region, we fund each year a Bay Delta Cal-Fed water use efficiency NOFO, which is geared toward urban or agricultural water conservation activities. We also have one that's dedicated toward agricultural water use efficiency for on-farm efficiency projects. Separately and concurrently through our Water Smart program in Denver, each year we fund many different NOFOs. Each one of these is reflective of unique programs that have their own goals. What this means is, well, you know, a particular project may not be successful under one program, but it could be under the other, because each of these programs do have their own priorities. In general, up to 50% of the project will be funded with federal funds. And each NOFO will talk about who's an eligible entity. In general, it's a state, tribe, irrigation district, water district, or someone with water or power delivery authority. If your particular agency does not have such authority or is not considered eligible, you can always partner with someone who is. For instance, if a recreation and parks department wanted to implement some water conservation activities at a park, well, that district may not have such authority, but they could partner with their local water agency, which does have water or power delivery authority. And the water agency could apply basically on the recreation and park district's behalf. So some options are available there and creativity for partnering as well as for your projects. We do strive to make our awards through a competitive process and post everything to grants.gov. I'm not going to go through every single program we have. We do have a lot. They are different from ones that focus on water saving and water conservation activities through big projects and smaller projects, all the way back down to planning. Each program is different. Each NOFO is different. And you can apply for funding for the same project under multiple NOFOs, but reclamation will ask you to, if you were successful under multiple NOFOs, you can be funded only under one. So you would have to choose. Each year, we have a variety of number of applications. Never know whether or not we're going to have a lot or a few. In the past, we've had from a handful of projects all the way to over 100. So each funding cycle, it's a little bit different. Our application advice and insights very similar to what it is on grants.gov. Read the entire NOFO. If you have any questions, please ask. Please keep in mind that the application review committee does not know your project and is not allowed to conduct additional research. So in your application, you need to tell your story of why this project is important for you. The non-federal cost share can come from a variety of sources, such as state funding and loans. One advice is to copy the criteria from the NOFO and answer each part of the question. Like we talked about earlier, if it's a yes or no question, please begin your answer with yes or no. If you have a large project, you can divide it into phases, and each phase can be funded separately under separate NOFOs. and we will score your project. Your project will be evaluated based upon the benefit of that particular phase. So if you want us to score your project based upon the benefit of the entirety, then that would be one single application. But if your project is robust enough, it could be that separate applications would each get funded. And like we talked about earlier, you can request a debrief if your application was not successful. Here are a few links that you can go to. We do have lots of additional information. One good thing you can look at are press releases. Each year when we fund projects, we put out a press release that summarizes each successful project under each NOFO and each program. By looking at these press releases, it can give you a better idea of whether or not some may be applicable to you. Now, I'm going to share one last thing with you, and I tried to put it into the chat, but it would not let me. So if you want, I can send it to you separately. Reclamation puts out something of a little bit of a, call what you will, a funding spreadsheet that shows what we've done in the past and what we plan to do for the next fiscal year. This is a summary of all the different programs that we're looking to fund this year, and our schedule for it, as well as the amount of funding available. As you'll read down here through the bipartisan infrastructure law, we have a lot of money that we're going to try to expend over the next 1 or 2 fiscal years. So we should be putting out a lot of NOFOs, and many of them will have significant federal funding caps. So there's a lot of funding out there. Please consider applying. If you have any questions, please contact me or somebody else from Water Conservation, and we'll do our best to put you in touch with somebody else if we can't answer your question. Again, my name is David White. I'm with the United States Department of the Interior Bureau of Reclamation, and I'll be in one of the breakout rooms afterwards. And with that, I think I am finished. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I always enjoy hearing you speak on what the federal government has for us. And like you said, there's a lot of money out there to be spent. So I encourage all to please go visit David in his breakout room so that you can find out more about the information that he can present to you. Our next speaker is from USDA, Robin Yasso. She's going to be telling us about some of the programs they have there. And so I'll stop sharing my screen, and Robin, you can start sharing yours.
Sure, thank you. One moment here. All right, so I think we're in the afternoon now, so good early afternoon. My name is Robin Yasso. I'm with USDA Rural Development. And today I'm going to be presenting specific programs that I work in. It's the water and environmental programs and also our community facility programs. Let's see if it works here. I'm trying to go to the next slide. Oh, dang it. 1 second. Here. There we go. Okay, so again, I'm going to be presenting on what is rural development under U.S. Department of Agriculture, and then our water and environmental, otherwise known as WEP. Acronyms kind of seem to run in the government, so you'll hear it a lot. And then our community facilities programs, which is CF, and then I'm going to go through a few example projects so you have an understanding of how our programs are put into action and work. So we're essentially broken into 3 different arms under USDA Rural Development. So under rural housing includes community facilities. So there's lots of different programs. We have home ownership for single family homes. We have a one-time type grant for single family. There's mutual self-help technical assistance programs. We have our multifamily housing loans. If you think of like HUD, what they do in the metropolitan areas, you know, we have big build outs of apartment complexes in rural areas to help promote rural development. And then finally, our community facilities loans and grants. We have direct loans, guaranteed loans, and then we have grants up to $50,000, depending if you qualify and depending on your your non-metropolitan household income in your region. So I'll go through that in a little bit. Under the rural utility service, we have our electric program and our water and environmental programs, which I'll be talking about, telecommunications and broadband programs. Those are kind of all hot topics with people working remote more. Some of those programs are held out of our national office. So we would guide you to the correct person if you're interested in those other programs. And then we also have our business and cooperative services programs. There's a whole bunch of them on that list. So you can take a look at it. One of the really neat ones that I've enjoyed seeing is the value added producer grant. Let's say you have a winery and you want to add, a label to your wine bottle. There's a grant for business owners. This is just an example. There's a grant. Let's say you want to add to marketing materials or add something to your current product. This might be a grant that you can apply for marketing and development costs. They also have their complete business and industry guaranteed loans. They have their own grants. And then there's also an intermediary relending program. We'll move on. So for the water and environmental programs in California, fiscal year 21 and 22, you can see we spent between almost 40 million to 48 million that was allocated specifically in the state for different projects. So that's a pretty good amount of money. And community facilities in fiscal year 22, we had over 129 projects. So sometimes we can have a lot of projects. They might not be high dollar amount projects, but they still benefit the community. And it was over $78 million. Okay, so our water programs here. So we have our water and waste disposal loan and grant. We have the ECWAG, which is Emergency Community Water Assistance Grants, Colonial Grants, Native American grants, and search grants. And I'll dive into each one of those programs. Okay, so to start, eligible applicants include public bodies, which also includes special districts, nonprofits, and federally recognized tribes. This is the catch with rural development, is that the population must be of 10,000 or less. So we're really focusing on those really small communities that people haven't heard of, but they're there and they need help. So we have comprehensive funding, construction, engineering fees, from soft costs all the way to the build out. So the land, the legal fees, and environmental costs. Loans can be combined with grants to help keep user costs reasonable. So we definitely look at all options. Our rates and terms, our rates are shifting constantly. So every quarter they're changing, but they were at between 2.125 to 3.5%. Our rates are based on the non-metropolitan median household income and where that community falls, and we do a calculation. And the terms are up to 40 years. So that really does help with the cost still. Grant eligibility is up to 45%. Again, service area has to have a median household income of the 50,000 up to the 62,883, which is still our non-metropolitan median household income we're going to be abiding by for quite a while. And it's we can do up to a 75% grant depending on the project and the need. Service area again has to have an income for the area lower than the 50,307, and the project has to be in need to alleviate a health or sanitary problem. So they might be on a list with the state saying that they're on a violation list for some type of water contamination or something along those lines to be eligible for up to that much of 75% grant. ECWAG, this one's a fun one, the Emergency Community Water Assistance Grant. It's great because it assists the communities that have experienced the significant decline in quantity or quality of water directly caused by an emergency incident. Emergency incidents can include drought, earthquake, flood, landslide, etc. Grants may cover 100% of the project, which is great. There's not a match up to that, up to $1 million. So funds also can be used to develop new water sources and for water treatment. Colonia grants are only going to affect in California, those lower counties. So it has to be Imperial, San Diego, or the Southern Riverside counties. We get about 3 million a year for California and projects that correct serious health or sanitary problems again, and they have to be associated with drinking water and waste disposal systems. So those are pretty specific, but it's nice because there is funds set aside just for those counties for this type of a grant. Okay, the Native American grant, projects that again are correcting a health and sanitary problem associated with drinking water or waste disposal systems. The income has to be quite low, as you can see. Unemployment rate must be no less than 6.25%. Generally, it's 2 million max per project, and that was last fiscal year. We are in fiscal year 2023 because we're federal, so that started on October 1. And then again, there's about 15 million nationally available. I've been able to see one of these grants at work, so it was about $2 million, and we're about finishing it up now. Up in the northwestern part of California, and it's great to see that we're able to provide this for our tribes. Search grants are great because they help with pre-development costs, that soft cost. Eligible areas are going to be very small, like under 2,500. Median household income needs to be below 50,000, 306. Now these dollar amounts will change within the next fiscal year because we're going to be using a different the updated census information. But for now, this is where we're at. 30,000 max to pay for the pre-development planning cost. So like a preliminary engineering report or something like that might be in line with a search grant if you're going to continue and apply for the water environmental program funding. The application process is to build community support. You want to have a meeting with us before you do anything if you can. Remember, find a USDA personnel. Our information is on our website. We'll go through the preliminary engineering report in conjunction, hopefully with environmental report, so that we can work on, have those being worked on at the same time. You'll have a complete application. Once that's been reviewed, we would issue a letter of conditions. Once that's been reviewed and signed, we obligate funding and then disbursement after the loan and grant closing or start of construction, depending on the terms of in the letter and conditions. There's a nice application system. It's called RD Apply. It's just the rdapply.usda.gov, and that's how you would apply. But please work with a community program specialist under rural development before you just jump into RD Apply, so we can walk you through it and talk about it because it sets a timer, and that makes it hard on you and for us to get everything done. So it's best to work with us first. It is great because it's completely secure, and it definitely helps the process move along faster. Okay, community facilities, loans and grants. Next program I'm going to discuss. So we have our eligible applicants here. It can be your nonprofits, federally recognized tribes, and public bodies, which do include cities, counties, special districts. So lots of different folks can apply for this as well. We have lots of different examples. We've had health clinics, community centers, daycares, lots of different essential needs for police, either a build out of a police station or fire station, or fire trucks that are 500,000, 750,000 now per truck. They're expensive. Libraries, we've done some bookmobiles, which is really fun and great to see those go out into the rural areas. Museums, animal shelters, youth centers, senior centers, assisted living, and again, lots of vehicles like fire apparatus, or think about equipment that maybe a police station or a fire station or even like a daycare or a community center. What is it that they would need? They can apply for either in a loan or a grant, depending on eligibility. Eligible areas for community facilities, it's quite a bit larger. It's double than the water programs. It's 20,000 and under, still small. Again, the eligible purposes would be for construction. You could use it for potentially acquiring land and rights, a lot of the soft costs, so the legal and engineering and architectural fees, and major equipment. We have direct loans, terms up to about 38 years. Sometimes it can That's about right. So about 38 years with the useful life of the asset. So just think of like, how long would an average truck, last for? That would be, we would place the loan with that. We don't have fees. We do need to see your audits. So we would go back at least for special public bodies, it'd be 3 years, and nonprofits, it'd be 5 years. So we would run an analysis to see, if you can cash flow a loan with us. And then again, having the security or the collateral for the loan. Grants are popular. So entities that are unable to pay a direct loan might be able to apply for grant maximum, because we have so many now, is about 50,000. Again, it can be used for, generally it's used for major equipment. We do require a cash match that's on a sliding scale. So let's say your grant, you can be grant eligible up to 75%, depending on the size of your community and the income of your community. The maximum percent, again, oh, I just said that. So there it is. Maximum percent of the grant, again, depends on the income and where it's located. Okay. So our application, we take applications year round. We don't use the grants.gov for this. This is done directly through USDA Rural Development through a community program specialist. We have a pre-application, applicant purpose, rural area, other credit. We go through all of that. We have a feasibility, environmental, architectural report if there's a build out or anything that might disturb land. We look through a financial feasibility report. Again, the environmental, trying to figure out which level of environmental report is necessary. And then the preliminary reports for architectural or engineering, and an appraisal for security purposes and collateral. Okay, so these are some examples. So this one, well, if I could see my screen better, was an a wet project totaling over 43 million. You can see that we used a partner. So we used the state water revolving fund, and then we participated in over 28 million between a loan and a grant for this big build out. Okay, Coachella Valley. This is another big water. You can see there was a lot of different funding that was pooled for this. This was just funded in 2022. It was over 22 million in a loan. It's the main and booster station project. It looks like that we used over 3.3 million in the grant, which is fantastic. 1.5 plus some change in the Colonia grant because it was along the border. And then the total project again was over 27,540,000. So these projects aren't necessarily small. They can be as small as the 50,000, as large as they go. We don't have a cap. This one was Woodlake. They had a combination of loans and grants between they had a healthcare center. They also had their whole new water treatment plant. They basically built this community up from the ground up. So you can see there was a combination of loans and grants available for these two different projects. So water treatment and also community facilities. Modoc Medical Center and the healthcare replacement project. That was a big one. That was over 44 million. We did, looks like a direct loan of 35,130,000. And I'm assuming, I don't see anything more on here. This wasn't one I worked on, but I'm assuming that they might've contributed the difference themselves, or somebody else came in for that difference. We have lots of offices. You can go onto our website, rd.usda.gov/California. And you can take a look and you can see right where those arrows are pointed. There's community facilities and there's the water programs. Those are the two programs that a community program specialist would work on. If you want information on other programs, you would just click on the appropriate link. This is just an example. We'll do questions in the breakout room, but this is probably one of the new fire trucks that was funded through us in Alturas. All righty. Thank you very much for your time. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing and hand it back.
Thank you. That was great information on how to build a community from the ground up and partner with other agencies and funding programs. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. So now I will share my screen. Our next person that's going to be talking to us is from the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, and Naomi. She's going to be giving us some information, more information about another federal agency with money. So let me stop sharing my screen and let you start sharing your screen, Naomi.
Okay, thank you. Let me pull up my presentation. Does that work?
Yes, we see it.
Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Noemi Emmerich Ford, and I work for the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. I am place-based in our Los Angeles field office, and I'm here today to talk to you about brownfields resources that we have available. And so first, I just want to start with, since I'm not sure how familiar those who are participating today are familiar with brownfields, I want to first start with the definition. So brownfields is a property where the expansion, redevelopment, or reuse is complicated by either the presence or potential presence of a hazardous substance, pollutant, or contaminant. And so the idea is properties in your community that may be sitting there that are derelict, vacant, underutilized, that are not being redeveloped, whether they do have contamination or just there's a perceived notion of it, would make them eligible for our funding under the definition of brownfields. As you can see here from this picture, you can see pre-cleanup, how it's moved through the phases into post-cleanup, and then finally into the redevelopment. And so there's a lot of hyperlinks in this presentation. And I'll talk about as I go through the presentation that there are numerous opportunities for how you can reuse properties. And when you click on that link there, countless reuse opportunities, it will take you to examples of others. And so here are a few more: affordable housing, which of course across California and just across many of the states in the West, affordable housing is definitely needed. And so how our funding can be used to both assess, clean up, and assist in the redevelopment planning for affordable housing, as well as environmentally friendly transportation. Either it's with EV charging, with assisting communities trying to put in new light rail, with rural and tribal health facilities, with community parks and open space, and then renewable energy. And so those are just a variety. Of course, it could be industrial development, it could be commercial development, mixed use, but all of those, as long as it's a use, taking a property and putting it back to some kind of productive use, it would meet our definition for brownfields. And so, of course, what everyone is sharing today, I want to talk about the variety of resources that we have within our brownfields program. So the ones that I'm going to touch on a little bit more in depth are those in the green bubbles: our cleanup, multi-purpose assessment, revolving loan fund, and job training grants. Those are all grants where funding would go directly to the recipient. The one in the very light blue circle, the Targeted Brownfields Assessment Program, is a service that EPA provides. It's more technical assistance. And then the one in the dark blue bubble is funding that we provide directly to state entities or tribal entities. And it's a non-competitive program that will assist in setting up a state environmental response program. And I just want to note that we are, as many federal agencies, particularly for the brownfields program under the bipartisan infrastructure law, have received $1.5 billion that we have to spend over the next 3 years, because we're 2 years in already. And then on the side is just giving you kind of the life cycle for brownfields and how our funding can be used. So we start first with identifying the site. We then move into doing environmental assessments, move into planning now that we know what exists at the site, doing our cleanup planning and our reuse planning, getting directly to the cleanup, and then assisting in terms of planning for revitalization. Our funding cannot be used to do any construction and build out of what the final public good or use that you may have there, but it'll fund all of the steps leading up to that. And so for those who aren't familiar with brownfields and would like to stay connected or updated with us, if you go, this is also hyperlinked. If you go to our website, you can join our brownfields listserv. You can also find out about any brownfields program policy changes directly at this link, and then be able to know when our solicitations are open. So I want to first start with kind of what I talked about in the green bubbles, the different types of grant types that we have. So for assessment grants, I'm just going to hit on how much funding is available. It's between $200,000 up to $2 million cleanup, 500,000 up to 2 million revolving loan fund, $1 million, and then our multi-purpose grant, which combines our assessment and cleanup at 800,000. We do currently have a request for applications that is open right now for each of these grant types, and it closes on November 22nd. And so just to give some general background for those who might not be as familiar with Brownfield's work and some of the terminology that I might use, ESAs or environmental site assessments, we typically request that you follow the ASTM industry standard. For phase 1, it is a requirement to do so. It's called an all appropriate inquiry phase 1. Phase 2s, we don't require it, but we would recommend that you use the ASTM standard. As part of cleanup planning, we do require that you have an analysis of Brownfield's cleanup alternatives. Basically, that's just saying, depending on the reuse that you're going to have, that you've thought about what type of remediation would be best for the redevelopment that's going to go there. And we have a simple kind of a 2-page that can be used as a model for completing this analysis of Brownfield's cleanup alternatives. As part of our funding, we do have to make sure that not only the applicant is eligible, but the site that you are planning to do the work on is also eligible. We're not looking to the polluter who caused the contamination. We're not looking to fund them. They should be responsible for cleaning up properties that they polluted. But oftentimes public entities inadvertently take on some of these properties that have been contaminated and they weren't the responsible party. And so we do want to help fund those. Again, public and privately held sites could be assessed. So for instance, a city could work with a private developer to conduct the assessments on the private entity's property, particularly if they're trying to do a development that is beneficial to the city's specific plans or their general plan for redevelopment in their community. And then for those who are familiar with US EPA's Brownfields program, in the past, we had a distinction in funding between hazardous substance and petroleum. They are both considered under our program, but we no longer have to distinguish between the two. So who's eligible to apply for this funding? So states, tribes, nonprofits. For nonprofits, you have to be a 501c3. For general unit local governments, it could be a city, it could be a county, a school district, regional government authorities, COGS, any type of special district, joint powers authority. As long as you are considered some quasi-governmental entity, you are eligible to apply. And then for this year, since I mentioned we have a request for proposals currently open, this will give you an idea of what we're planning to fund. So not only did we receive the bipartisan infrastructure law funding, but we still have our regular appropriations fund. So as you can see for this year, with this RFP that's open now, we're going to have about 170 million available. And then you can get an idea based on the different grant types that I'm going to talk about, how many we expect to award under each category at the different amounts. Of course, this is all subject to change based on applications that come in, but this is our plan for right now. And so this is a national program. So these numbers are based on what's available nationally, not just what's available within our region in the West. So now I'm going to get into talking about the various grant types. So the first one is our community-wide assessment grant. So this is a grant that lasts for 4 years. You can see here the different activities. You could conduct an inventory, which what that means is just looking across your community and literally either doing a GIS or just having someone walk particular communities that you may be interested in within your city or county and identifying where you might see abandoned, vacant, or derelict properties. The picture that's shown there, not every community is going to have a site that looks like that. It may look more just like an open field that has just been sitting there for 10 years and you're wondering why redevelopment hasn't happened. So you can use our funding to go in and conduct environmental assessments to determine extent of contamination. These are, if you apply for this community-wide assessment grant, it's $500,000 and there is no match required. So we also have a community-wide assessment grant that is only open to states and tribes. States and tribes can apply for up to $2 million under this award. It's to do the exact same activities as listed under community-wide assessment grant, just that it's only available to states and tribes. And so again, this is where we want to have larger entities be able to assess across a greater area as needed. And these are for this grant award is up to 5 years and there is no match. We also have what's called an assessment coalition grant. And so the coalition grant was designed for, there may be entities or communities that are in need of brownfields funding, but they do not have the capacity to apply for a grant themselves, but could use some of the assistance that could be done under the grant type. So for instance, you could have a state, a county government, or a tribe, or some kind of group of general purpose units of local governments, like a COG, apply and then bring in at least 2 other partners who do not have the capacity to apply on their own. And as the applicant would not only be doing work, let's say in that larger county, but then also doing work specifically in the 2 partner areas. And so that grant is up to $1 million and the length of that is 4 years and there is no match. And again, it's through the same activities that we've talked about earlier with the community-wide assessment grant. So under all of the assessment grants, redevelopment planning can be done. Again, just hitting on what I said in the beginning, our funding is not used to build the redevelopment, but it can be used to plan for the redevelopment. And so these are different activities that can be conducted under an assessment grant. So you can do market evaluations, you can do an infrastructure study, could do a transportation study. Maybe you don't have the infrastructure in place for whatever this development might be. It would give you an idea of what might be needed. There's just a variety of things there that you can do with that funding that would move you closer to making redevelopment happen. So now that you have properly assessed the site, and now you know what the extent of contamination is, and you realize, yes, there is contamination here, you then have the opportunity to apply for cleanup grants. So these grants, inherent in the name, is used to remediate a property so that you can make it available for reuse. Also under these grants, you can do some reuse planning and of course, community engagement, which you can do with all of our grants, but specifically under cleanup grants, we require that some level of community involvement is implemented to ensure that the community has an opportunity to comment on the cleanup that's going to be done. And then you can also use these funds, since US EPA under our brownfields program is not seen as a regulatory agency overseeing your cleanup. That would be done at a state and or in California, a local level. You can use our funding to pay for those regulatory oversight fees. So the requirements though for a cleanup grant, unlike an assessment grant, a city could use funding to conduct assessments at a private entity's property. With cleanup grants, the owner of the property has to apply for the funding. And so private entities are not eligible to apply for funding. So it has to be a property that a city or a county owns. And there are no opportunities for an entity to apply on behalf of another entity. Only the owner of the property can apply. We do require that you have a phase 2 report or some type of site investigation report completed, because we want to fund projects that are ready to spend the money immediately. We have 3 different funding levels for this grant. You can apply for a $500,000 grant, $1 million grant, or a $2 million grant. And because we have the infrastructure funding, there is no match required for cleanup grants while we have that additional funding. And again, this is a 4-year grant. So we expect that the site and all of the work happens within 4 years. So now I'll move us into our revolving loan fund. So you've heard in earlier presentations how different programs have loans available, low interest loans. What our revolving loan fund program is, it's a grant that we provide to an entity. That entity then uses it as a revolving loan fund program. So with this funding, you can spend, or you have to spend 50% of it on loans. The other amount you can use to pay for the servicing of the loan, to pay for management to oversee the grant, and then you can use a portion of the funding for what we call sub-grants, but most would call forgivable loans. So you can use up to $200,000 per site, possibly going up to $350,000 per site, to give to a nonprofit or another unit of government to get a site remediated, and they do not have to pay that back. That's called a sub-grant. So this is up to $1 million. The great thing about the revolving loan fund program is once you get this grant, you get $1 million in that first year. But as long as you spend that money and have a portion of it spent, every year you can apply for additional funding and you don't have to compete for that funding. If you request it, then you will have additional funding put into your grant. And again, because we're operating with infrastructure funding, there is no cost share. Typically, there's a 20% cost share, both for cleanup and revolving loan fund. But while we have the infrastructure funding, there would be no cost share. And these grants, even though it's an initial length of 5 years, these grants can run up to 15 years. Now, a multi-purpose grant is basically taking, as opposed to having you apply for knowing that you want to do both assessment and cleanup work, we're giving you the opportunity to apply for both of them within one grant. And so this would combine all the activities that I said were eligible in an assessment grant, as well as those activities under a cleanup grant. So this is up to $800,000. We do require, though, that at a minimum of the $800,000, $200,000 has to be spent on cleanup. So we want to make sure that the purpose of the grant for doing both assessment and cleanup is happening. We do require that you have at least one phase 2 environmental site assessment completed for a site where you would want to do cleanup and that you own. And we're also looking to make sure that you have some type of revitalization plan so that you have a reuse strategy for at least one of the brownfield sites that you identify within your application. Again, this would typically require a match because it has cleanup funding, but because of the infrastructure funding, there would be no match, and this grant can go up to 5 years. Again, the entity that is applying where that cleanup would be done, they do have to be the owner of that site. You cannot conduct a cleanup on behalf of another entity. And then, so that's it for our grant programs. But of course, like others have talked about, and particularly the presenter that spoke on grants.gov, which I thought was great. If this information are narrative ranking criteria, remember that when you apply for a grant, you're telling a story. So respond to the criteria. These are our 4 main criteria that we look at. We want to know what your project area description is, what your plans are for revitalization, what your community need, how are you conducting community engagement. Give us a description of all the tasks that you plan to implement with this funding. We want cost estimates. We want to know how you're going to measure success. And then, of course, that you have programmatic capability to be able to manage the grant, and then what your past performance is. You do not have to have had an EPA grant in the past to be able to meet the past performance. It could be based on other federal grants that you've had. Then talk about what your past performance was under those. And then just this hits on some of what you heard earlier, just in your application submission. Just highly recommend that you're available, that you have everything available 1 week before the deadline, which is really soon if you're planning to apply for our funding, because applications are due on the 22nd. Just highlighting again that DUNS is not no longer used. You have to have the unique entity identifier. Make sure that you're registered in san.gov. So the challenge for us is, unless you ask for a waiver, you can't try to submit an application on the 22nd. If it doesn't go through, then try to email it to us, because we have said the deadline is at this point. We do know that grants.gov is going to go down for some unfortunate fixes right before the deadline on the 22nd, but we're still sticking to the deadline of the 22nd. So just encourage you, if you're interested in applying, just be ready before the 22nd. We do have some assistance available to you. US EPA cannot provide you any of that assistance right now because the request for applications is open and it goes against our competition rules. However, we have a grantee in the Center for Creative Land Recycling. They can review your draft proposals and provide you feedback to let you know if you've met all the criteria. The idea is, if you want them to review your application and give you feedback, you do need to submit your applications to them soon so that they have time to review it. Here's their website, there's a hyperlink there, and then there's the email of the person that you can reach out directly to, Ignacio David, and he can provide you who on his team might be able to provide that assistance. And then there was one other grant program that I wanted to talk about. This one does not, all of those other grants that I talk about are within one request for applications, and they're done at the same time every year. That RFP is issued typically in the fall, and then applications are due 60 days later. we have a workforce development grant. It's called Brownfields Job Training. And this is because with the infrastructure funding now, we're able to offer this grant for $500,000. It's typically $200,000, and it's typically a 3-year grant program. But now since we're offering $500,000, it's 5 years, 4 years of providing environmental training, and then 1 year of tracking for placement. There is no match for this. All of the same eligible entities that I talked about earlier are also eligible for this grant. And what this grant does is provide resources to you within your community to be able to train residents to get the certifications and the skills that they need to be able to do the work of brownfields within your community, whether they're doing some of the work that's involved in doing the inventory, the phase 1s, the phase 2s, the actual remediation, whether it's forklift training, operating some of the machinery to do the cleanup. You would be able to give them the certifications to be able to do that work. Get lead and asbestos training, confined space, OSHA safety, the 10-hour safety course, CPR, a variety of different things. We're expecting the RFP for this grant application to come out in the spring of 2023. And then the last thing I want to highlight, and this is the one that was the light blue on that flower circle. This is technical assistance. So all those other programs that I've talked about is funding that will come directly to you for you to implement. This is, if you're like, you know what, I don't have time, I don't want to apply for a grant, we don't have the capacity within my community, but I know I have brownfield sites and I have a few sites that are sitting there vacant and derelict, then I have no idea if contamination exists. That's where to EPA, we have this rolling application. It's 3 pages you fill out. It's online. We have contractors on retainer who will then go out and conduct those environmental site assessments for you. So they can go out, do the full extent of sampling at the property, and then tell you what the extent of contamination is and help set you up if the property is contaminated for what you need to do in terms of remediation so that you can move the property forward for reuse. It's the assistance we provide is up to $100,000. We have a little bit more flexibility since we have a lot more funding in this program, given the infrastructure dollars. Again, we can conduct a phase 1 or phase 2 for you. We're really looking for properties that are in near-term redevelopment, that you have some leverage dollars that you could use if the site is contaminated, that it would get cleaned up, and or funding that you already have set aside for that redevelopment. We're looking for communities that have environmental justice challenges, or for communities that have been historically underserved, and then that the redevelopment is something that's going to serve the public good, whether it's for affordable housing, open space, ecological restoration, transit-oriented development, whatever it might be. So this is a program that, again, we have funding now. If you have a site that you would like for us to conduct this work at, please feel free to reach out to me. There is no deadline. It is a little bit of the first come, first serve, as long as you've met the criteria that I've listed below. And just lastly, here's my name and my contact information. So if there's anything in here that sounds of interest to you, if you can't meet the 22nd deadline, just know that it's an annual request for application. So it always comes out in the fall. We could help work with you now to plan for applying for next fall if the 22nd is just too close. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. That was another great opportunity with funding and how you can combine several different sources for your community to get what you need. Before we go on to our last presenter on our local agency, we want to take another poll, find out how many of you plan on visiting any of the federal agencies. I'll take a moment. Oh, great. We are having people, a lot of people wanting to see the federal agencies. A lot of people wanted to visit the state agencies booths. Again, at the end of the last, after the local agency, we're opening up the breakout rooms. And if there's too many people in one room, we have what we call one-on-one rooms, and you can go into another room and talk if there's so many people in one breakout room. So I wanted to let the presenters know that too, the agency representatives, and all you who are attending today. So our final presenter is Mike Archer. He is from the RCAC. He will be giving us information about how their organization helps with technical assistance. I'm sure you've heard their name throughout some of the presentations, and so he's going to let you know how that works. So I'll stop sharing my screen and I'll have him start sharing his.
Great, thank you. All right, yeah, thank you. My name is Mike Archer. I'm a loan officer with RCAC. My territory is Northern California and Alaska. Today, I will be giving a brief overview of RCAC and our technical assistance program, and then I will transition to the bulk of the presentation, which will cover our funding out of our loan fund. RCAC is a 501c3 nonprofit that operates in 13 Western states and Pacific Islands. Since 1978, we have provided training, technical and financial resources, and advocacy so rural communities can achieve their goals. RCAC provides technical assistance to rural communities to build, improve, manage, operate, or finance drinking water and wastewater systems. RCAC has helped rural communities access millions of dollars in grants and loans and train thousands of individuals through customized on-site technical assistance workshops. We have infrastructure. We know that infrastructure development can be extensive and expensive and challenging with a web of problems and details that can arise. So we work to help communities navigate many of these programs that you've heard about today. On the screen is a list of the services that we provide. Regionalization, this facilitates a process to bring multiple small systems together to become more sustainable. It provides tools to help build relationships with utilities and communities and funding agencies. We provide assistance with funding applications for both planning and construction phases, hiring engineers through the procurement process and everything that goes along with that. We do provide help with rate studies for financial analysis, Prop 218 process. We help with policy development. We can help with financial, managerial, operational, emergency response plans, vulnerability assessments, O&M manuals, operation plans, and community outreach. We also provide operator and board training. Many of you may be aware of our free drinking water operator training workshops that are funded under a grant from the State Water Resources Control Board. These workshops help keep California operators in compliance with SDWA. We also have our board trainings for topics like AB 54 and AB 240, ethics for mutual water companies, understanding your responsibilities in the financial arena, policy and procedure development, and more. We provide on-site training and have a tribal circuit rider program where we work with operators and administrators on training to ensure delivery of safe drinking water on the reservations that are served. We do help with median household income surveys as well to determine eligibility for state and federal grants. There are several ways to access our technical assistance. You can go to the website here and fill out our little form, or you can just give us a call and we'll be able to help, or you're more than welcome to contact me or any of the people there, and we can certainly direct you to the correct place. You may also end up being assigned to us under one of our many grants that we have where we work with the state and federal programs. In 1988, RCAC established a loan fund to serve as a financial resource for rural communities. As a CDFI, we are a private sector financial intermediary with community development as our primary mission. We are well capitalized. We have foundations, financial institutions, trusts, endowments, provide us capital through low interest rate loans and grants, which RCAC then turns around and lends out to our communities. The loan fund fills financing gaps that maybe the bank or state or federal funding sources can't quite reach. We serve all areas with 50,000 or less population within our 13 state region. In addition to the environmental loans that we'll talk about here shortly, RCAC also offers loans for community facilities such as healthcare centers, charter schools, fire stations. We offer affordable housing loans. We do self-help programs in partnership with the USDA. We can provide loans for land acquisition and construction, as well as multifamily affordable housing projects. We also provide small business loans. We have recently made loans to hotels, daycare facilities, counseling, a training provider, and an organization which provides transportation for special needs individuals. So we can provide a pretty broad array of financing solutions. But let's get to our topic for today, the financing of environmental infrastructure. Who is eligible? We will offer loans to nonprofit organizations, governmental entities, or federal or state recognized tribal entities. Types of projects, we do water, wastewater, and solid waste. Again, we only work with communities that have populations of 50,000 or less, and we do have some income requirements. We have to have the median household income that is either less than the county's median household income or the state median household income. So we think about loans in there are three distinct financing needs. So if you need to borrow for 12 to 24 months, we consider that a short-term loan. If you will require a longer repayment period from say 5 to 20 years, this would be considered an intermediate loan. And then if you want the loan to go for longer, say 20 to 30 years, we operate with the long-term loans. RCAC's loan program is unique in that it can provide early funds to small rural communities that need to determine project feasibility or pay pre-development costs prior to receiving state or federal funding. So we can provide small, say $50,000 loans for feasibility studies or preliminary engineering reports that will allow you to move forward in the with your state or federal funding source. We do also provide construction and bridge financing. So let's look at an example of a short-term project. This public utility district operates an older wastewater treatment plant that is nearing its design capacity. The California State Water Resource Control Board has committed to $10,660,000 in a loan and grant funding for improvements to expand and update the treatment plant. The problem is that California, the SWRCB can sometimes take 60 to 90 days to reimburse the public utility district for the costs incurred. So the proposed financing will be used to provide the PUD with the ability to pay their contractor or engineer on a timely basis, so that they're not having to either put out that money on their own or asking the contractor to wait 2 to 3 months to get reimbursed. So And this is what we call a bridge loan or a revolving line of credit. Our short-term loans, they go up to 24 months. We have interest rates currently at 5%. If it's a construction loan, our loan fee is 1 1/8 or 1 1/8%. And then if it's a revolving loan where you'll be paying back the money and then redrawing it out, those come with a 1.5% fee. Collateral for these short-term loans is often just a grant anticipation note. We don't typically take hard collateral for these loans, but it does vary according to purpose. Intermediate term loans are for 5 to 20 years and normally do not exceed $500,000. In this example, the municipal water district needed to expand their existing storage capacity. The cost of the tank installation and connection was $402,000. RCAC provided a 6-month interest-only period in order for the district to install the tank and complete the connection, followed by a 9.5-year repayment period. As another example, we recently funded a loan to a district for the purchase of a parcel of land. This district anticipated an increase in their community's population. And when they were transitioning from a seasonal to a year-round residence and needed to add a well to their system. In this instance, we funded the purchase of the parcel and provided a 12-month drawdown period to drill and connect the well. This loan is being amortized over a 20-year period. For the intermediate term loans, we do those for up to 20 years. Interest rate varies by term, and we have a 1% loan fee. Collateral for these will often take an assignment of revenues. Again, normally we don't take hard collateral, but sometimes we do. And so we could take real estate or a security agreement. And then finally, we've got our long-term loans. These are for large capital improvement projects, normally not to exceed about $6 million. That's not a super hard and fast rule, but that's kind of where we like to try to stay. Excuse me. The Water User Association wanted to improve their cash flow, so we re-amortized their existing USDA loan over a longer period and lowered their interest rate. We can do these loans, the long-term loans, up to 30 years. Interest rate also varies by term. We have a 1% loan fee and then a 1% guarantee fee. For these, collateral can be real estate bonds, assignment of revenues, possibly real estate or a security agreement. But these longer term loans do require a USDA guarantee. The last example shows how we combine several lending programs to assist this HOA. The borrower needed to replace their aging septic system to become compliant with state standards. Their median household income was too high to qualify for a USDA grant. So RCAC provided a construction to term loan with a USDA B&I guarantee to enable the HOA to complete the project. Now that you've seen a few examples of how RCAC can help fund your project, let's talk about the application process. All of the forms and needs lists are on our website. And we've got a link at the end of the presentation here. Listed on the screen are the few of the key items we'll need to complete for a full underwrite. You can send them to me or your appropriate loan officer via email, OneDrive, or Dropbox. And you can also send paper copies. And always, if you have questions, don't hesitate to reach out. Once we've received an application, the majority of the documents, I can begin a full underwrite. Our goal is to obtain approval within 30 days. Sometimes this could take a little longer, depending on the size and complexity of the transaction. For loans over $500,000, they do have to go to our loan committee, which meets 2 times a month. documentation for the loan, and then the ultimate funding can be completed in the month following the loan approval. A lot of our loans are dispersed at loan closing, but in the event of a construction or bridge loan, there will be draw requests. We have a straightforward draw process. And once we have all the required documents, we can fund a request in 2 to 3 days. Up to this point, I've been telling you about the RCAC commercial water and wastewater program, but we do also have a household water and wastewater program, which I wanted to mention briefly here. We do provide low interest loans and grants up to $15,000 to construct, refurbish, or replace individual water well and septic systems. We also have a clean drinking water well replacement grant for households with income of less than $63,000. So I'm presenting this program for my colleagues. If you have any questions about the household programs, you can contact Yang or Deborah, who are listed here. And then lastly, as promised, this is our link to our application. And if you have any questions, yeah, please feel free to reach out. We're available at any time. Thank you.
Thank you for that. That was great. Another great information. Like I said, CFCC is here combining federal and state and local agencies funding to help communities with any of their projects. Like we mentioned today, there's a whole lot of affordable housing money out there. So, and I know that's, as they say, a hot topic. So I really am encouraging you all to visit the booths. That was our last agency, and I just want to do one more poll. See how many people are going to visit our local agency. I think they're going to be putting it up. Maybe not. Well, so in a moment, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I am going to open up the breakout room. Again, like I said, each agency has their own breakout rooms. Some of them are sharing, but if there's too many people inside one, you can always go to a one-on-one room. There's 4 of them. So all of them are open. You guys can go to any one of the rooms that you want to go to. Again, if you are unfamiliar of how to get there, well, no, I guess people know it. There's 4 boxes at the bottom of your screen that says breakout rooms. Let me share my screen to show that to you. At the bottom of your screen, there's 4 breakout rooms. I mean, a box with 4 boxes. Just go to there and join any of them, and then you can speak directly to program staff about what you heard today, or about any project that you have in the future. That they're there to help you.